Here is the latest Higher Summits forecast brought to you by our friends at the Mount Washington Observatory.
Weather above treeline in the White Mountains is often wildly different than at our trailheads. Before you hike, check the Higher Summits forecast at mountwashington.org. Weather observers working at the nonprofit Mount Washington Observatory write this elevation-based forecast every morning and afternoon. Search and rescue teams, avalanche experts, and backcountry guides all rely on the Higher Summits forecast to anticipate weather conditions above treeline. You should too. Go to mountwashington.org or text forecast to 603-356-2137.
Hi everybody, Nick here with your forecast for the weekend of May 24th, 2025, Memorial Day weekend. Friday, in the clouds with snow and sleet. Additional snow and sleet accumulations of 1 to 3 inches. High in the mid-20s. Wind east shifting counterclockwise to the northwest at 50 to 70 miles per hour early, then rapidly decreasing to 25 to 40 miles per hour by midday and 15 to 30 miles per hour later. Wind chill rising to 5 to 15 above. Friday night, in the clouds with snow and sleet. Additional snow and sleet accumulations of 1 to 3 inches. Lows in the lower 20s. Wind northwest at 15 to 30 miles an hour, increasing to 25 to 40 miles an hour. Wind chill falling to 0 to 10 above. Saturday, in the clouds with snow and sleet, tapering to snow showers. Additional snow and sleet accumulations of 1 to 3 inches. High in the upper 20s, wind northwest at 25 to 40 miles an hour, increasing to 30 to 45 miles per hour. Wind chill rising to 5 to 15 above. So it looks like winter's not quite done yet based on this forecast. Stay safe out there. Looks like full-on winter conditions basically. And have a great Memorial Day weekend.
Broadcasting from the Woodpecker Studio in the great Live Free or Die state of New Hampshire. Welcome to the Sounds Like a Search and Rescue podcast, where we discuss all things related to hiking and search and rescue in the White Mountains of New Hampshire and beyond. Here are your hosts, Mike and Nick.
Oh, actually, no, I am recording. I just kept mine rolling, so.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, there's gremlins around tonight. I don't know what's going on.
There is. So hopefully we will be okay, but we'll see.
This is third time's a charm, right? Or fifth or sixth, something like that we're on now.
Yeah, this could be a disaster, but we'll see. So, Mr. Nick, we've got a great show tonight, so welcome to episode 197. Tonight we're joined by Mike Cherim of Redline Guiding. He's going to break down a little bit of tips and tricks, advice, talk about some good stories about hiking. He's a real prolific guy in the White Mountains. He'll talk a little bit about like why you might want to use a guide service. He's going to talk about some of his adventures and trips out the west. So I'm excited to have him. And then we've got some random stories here. We got a black bear incident on the Bondcliff Trail. We've got an update on the Leavitt's bakery drama that happened in Conway.
Yes.
Some good news there from my perspective. And then we've got a few other stories to go through. And then we've got notable hikes. We've got some plans for hiking over the weekend. And yeah, that's about it. It's kind of light on the search and rescue news, but we'll sprinkle some stuff in. So I'm Mike.
And I'm Nick.
Let's get started.
Let's get started!
started.
Very good, Nick. So let's hear from our friend Christina from Wild Raven Endurance Coaching for a minute, and then we'll come back on the other side.
All right. Boop,
boop, boop.
Hi, I'm Christina from Wild Raven Endurance Coaching. I work with athletes of all levels, from hikers to triathletes, helping you reach your goals with personalized guidance. With years of experience hiking, mountain biking, and trail running across New England, I also have a deep knowledge of the New Hampshire 4,000 footers and the surrounding trails. Whether you're a beginner hiker or a seasoned athlete, I'll guide you towards your goals, reducing injury risk and improving your performance through smart, tailored coaching. Are you looking to transition from hiking to mountain running? I'm here to make that journey easier too. My approach combines strength training, mindfulness, and life balance on and off the trail. Let me help you find more joy in your sport while getting stronger and healthier along the way. Visit www.coaching.christinafolsick.com and start your adventure today.
All right, Nick, so do we have any, if I can skip the script here for a minute, didn't you say you had some music thing you wanted to cover? A Nick's music moment?
Yeah, I didn't know if we wanted to slide it in the pop culture, but we can definitely do it now.
Okay.
Just trying to keep up with the theme of doing something musical every week because I find it fun to look up these things.
I like it too. I like it, especially when we discover how disconnected we are in our music taste.
Yeah, it'd probably be more disconnection. I'm gonna throw you a bone next week or something though. I think I found a good album that I think you'll appreciate of maybe a 90s artist. So I think you'll recognize that. But for this week, I'm still going rogue, I guess.
All right, I appreciate it.
Yeah, lately I've been listening to the album "Stranger in the Alps" by Phoebe Bridgers. This came out in 2017. So I've kind of gone down this path of looking up the different members of the band Boy Genius. I don't know if you're familiar, Mike, or if some of the listeners might be familiar. But Boy Genius is a band made up of 3 solo artists: Phoebe Bridgers, Julian Baker, and Lucy Dacus. Their album, The Record, has been on repeat for me as far as just listening for probably the past couple years now. I also really like the EP they did by Boy Genius called Just the EP, which I think is just kind of a funny nod to they're just calling the things what they are. But really enjoyed those. So I've been kind of looking up the different artists and checking out what their solo work sounds like, since I wasn't really familiar, and I'm a big fan of Boy Genius. So probably find something or a tidbit that I'll like. So this was the debut album by Phoebe Bridgers. Like I said, it came out in 2017. Got really good acclaim from critics. I liked the album and just kind of listened to it just because I was like, I want something new to listen to. But it did do pretty well as far as Metacritic and a lot of those other, I guess, super critical, not to be redundant, websites and sort of review authors and whatnot. Has some really good songs on it. I think it produced 4 singles. Some of these are singles off the album. Some of these are songs that I like, but Motion Sickness is a really solid track. It's probably her most popular single and track to date. Scott Street, I really love. It's got a great build in it. Kind of explodes towards the end. The same with Georgia. And You Miss My Heart, which is the album's closer, is also really good. As far as how it sounds, mostly acoustic driven songs. There's tons of great harmonization on it. Huge fan of the lyrics. I think this reflects probably to some of the lyrics I'm sure she writes in Boy Genius, but they really just get stuck in your head. And I feel like it just adds to wanting to listen to this album and kind of dig in a little bit deeper. And most of the album kind of just examines different facets of people and relationships, kind of that whole gamut. So it's just good stuff. A lot of emotional songs. It's probably a somber, rainy day kind of album. I don't think it's particularly uplifting. Then again, I find sad music kind of fun to listen to sometimes. That's just me, but yeah, check it out.
All right, Nick, it sounds like a very moody album. I'll check it out. And just a little interesting tidbit. I'm always going for the interesting stuff here. So Phoebe Bridgers, apparently she played the homewrecker role in Mandy. Remember Mandy Moore? She was a pop star.
Yeah, yes,
she became
I do.
An actress. So Phoebe Bridgers, I guess Mandy Moore married this guy Ryan Adams, who is
sounds familiar.
A singer or something like that. He looks like a real not a handsome fella, but apparently he gets some pretty ladies. But he married Mandy Moore, and then about 5 years into the relationship, Ryan strayed with Phoebe Bridgers, and that caused the breakup for Mandy Moore. Mandy Moore at the time said it was irreconcilable differences, but that they broke up amicably. But in 2019, she came out and actually said that it was an abusive relationship. So,
oh, geez.
So yeah, so I'm assuming that Miss Bridgers probably has some angst to write about because she's been through a little bit of drama in her younger days.
I'm sure. And she definitely reflects, I mean, some of this album for sure gets into, maybe not that directly, but there's some angst and stuff going on. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, you know what gives me angst, Nick?
What's that, Mike? What gives you angst?
Hiking uphill.
Oh boy.
Hiking uphill. But there's good news. As I get older, it gets even more difficult. But there's good news. Me and Stomp have talked about exoskeletons before, but it sounds like there is actually a commercially viable exoskeleton that you can now buy, which is called Hypershell, and it's called Hypershell X. And with Hypershell X, adventure is no longer limited by endurance, whether it's tackling steeper trails or going further than ever before. This exoskeleton empowers us to explore the real world. So there's a little bit of a video here that I'll link into the show notes, but essentially it shows like somebody that is using a Hypershell X exoskeleton, and they're hiking, their heart rate's like 111 beats per minute, while their partner that's not using one is 171 beats per minute. So this thing it's a little bit like a harness, Nick. It's got like a wrap that goes around your thighs, and then it connects through your waist and your hip, and it looks like it has a motor that drives your uphill hiking. So kind of interesting.
They say 800 watts of gentle power.
Yes.
Interesting. Marketing.
Yeah, so I think that this is nice, especially like if somebody is truly, I think if you're physically capable, like no cheating, people.
Yeah, it's an interesting, I think I had shared this initially when Stomp had shared it to us on like the SLASR Instagram, and I was like, opinions everybody, and it was kind of interesting hearing what people thought. You get like I agree. It's an awesome innovation. You think of like if you get to a point where people that can't physically hike, like they have this device that can help them. But yeah, if you're able to, like, you should be out. You should be out doing the thing.
How long until some ultra runner like is caught using this thing?
Oh my god! Like someone chucks someone out of the woods and he's like, "Why'd you make such good time on like miles 25 to 35?"
Exactly. Yeah.
Catch him with one of these.
It's only a matter of time, but yeah, it's cool. And I think that like for people that have disabilities or older people that may not be as physically capable that want to continue to enjoy the outdoors, like this may be an option for them.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. You know where else you could use an exoskeleton, Nick?
Going out to the bonds?
Yes. If you're getting chased by a black bear on the Bondcliff Trail and you have an exoskeleton, it may be a good idea because, first of all, if the bear tries to bite into you, they may not be able to sink their fangs into your skin as easily, and then you also may be able to outrun them. But and you may need that if you're hiking on the Bondcliff Trail. So our friend Paul is the caretaker for that trail, so we got to warn him.
Yeah, you got to give Paul a shout out on this. Is really recent too. I didn't realize this like just happened.
Yeah, this happened. So shout out to Yosemite Dirt 1998 is his Reddit handle. This guy's a character too because he posted a bunch of pictures of this beer and the whole situation, and he put this whole long explanation in there. And then one of the pictures that he included was a picture of him peeing into the wilderness. And everyone's like, "Why did you put a picture of yourself peeing in the wilderness?"
I just got to that picture right as you were saying. I'm like, what am I looking at here?
That's what I didn't know.
What am I looking at here?
Yeah, it's not X-rated, but it shows the stream of the pee, which is
the arc, if you will.
So this Yosemite dude, I mean, honestly, maybe the bear should have eaten this guy. I don't know. So
brazen.
Here's the description though, Nick. So he said he was hiking on the Bondcliff Trail yesterday. So this is like 2 days ago. He was past the Franconia Falls turnoff, but before the part where you start to gain serious. So it sounds like he was he even on when you get over the bridge and you start walking onto the train tracks? That's the Bondcliff Trail there? Is that?
I believe. Yeah, I think it starts there. Okay. I'm assuming from where he's talking, it must be before you take that left and it starts to go uphill.
It's like before we stashed our beers, right?
Yeah, if you're ascending Bondcliff, like you hit that like hard left and you start to move away from like the river and it goes up.
Yeah, so it sounds like he was by the river then. But he basically said it's before the part where you start to gain. Oh, maybe it was. I don't know. Franconia Falls is like that's by the bridge.
That's before the bridge, I think.
Yeah. So I'm guessing he went over the bridge and then he was somewhere on the train tracks or something. So he heard a persistent rustling and realized a black bear was stalking him, initially from the tree line, but then directly on the path. He said he tried warding it off by making lots of noise, flailing around with his hiking sticks and banging his chest. Failing to scare it off, he continued to make noise while slowly backing down the trail. So I think he did a lot of things right here. But unfortunately, the bear just kept going. He said about 23 minutes... After about 23 minutes, which is very oddly specific, his voice gave out. And,
was he timing himself?
I guess. And the bear started like charging him regardless of how much flailing he did. And he was like, I just felt like the bear was too close for this to be a bluff. So he just threw his backpack off and started booking it down the trail. He was able to find another group of hikers, and then they made their way back to where he encountered the bear, but the pack was gone.
Are you supposed to take off your pack? Is the idea that the food's in the pack and the bear will just leave you alone?
I don't know. I mean, in my opinion, like I
would have been in a panic too. Like I'm not trying to play Monday morning quarterback either, but
I don't know what I would do either. But I'd like to think that I would like try to get food out of my backpack and maybe toss it as far away as I could,
like
and then
chuck the dry bag or whatever.
Right, and then try to get my way. But maybe he didn't have enough time. But he said that. I guess he had his phone. I definitely wouldn't be leaving my phone or keys away. So he had his phone, and he never got that back. So he did have his keys and digital camera in there. But so he's basically like anyone should be on the lookout for this backpack. Scary times, though.
Yeah, so be on the lookout for the backpack, I guess, if you're in that area. And be on the lookout for the black bear. Probably more important.
Yeah. And he did report it to the Fish and Game, and I'm guessing that there was a couple of people that had commented that said like it seemed like maybe this bear was attuned to the fact that if he bothered humans enough, they might give up their packs. And if that's the case, if that's what's going on, then this bear's either going to get removed from that area or removed from this earth.
Yeah, unfortunate.
Yeah. So stay safe out there. I mean, people always say like, oh, you don't need bear spray or whatever, but maybe you need bear spray. I don't know.
It couldn't hurt in that situation, that's for sure.
Nope.
Yeah, I think they're pretty quick too, like if they're charging you down, right? What do they run like 30 miles an hour or something? It's not like you're going to outrun one comfortably.
Yeah. You're definitely not going to outrun one. I mean, you might be able to wrestle it a little bit, but that's not going to go well either.
I'm good.
Yes. Yeah. So,
you can have my food.
Anyway, all right. So a little bit more detail on this parking drama on the Kinsman Trail here, Nick. So there was an article that was put out. I read a little bit of stuff online, like hikers are sour about the whole thing because basically like this Tarmac Green Recreation organization is saying that it's going to be a $20 fee for out-of-state visitors, $10 for New Hampshire residents, and then there'll be a season pass that's available for $80. Dedicated parking for mountain bikers accessing the Franconia chapter of New England Mountain Bike Association trails will also be provided. Residents on social media criticized the proposal, arguing that the smaller parking area and new fees could restrict access to the popular trailhead. The outdoor recreation organization defended the decision, citing environmental concerns, increased visitor volume in the region, particularly during busy periods like peak foliage, and they're saying that there's trail degradation, traffic congestion, and safety hazards. Comments I read online were like, I don't know why they're caring about the trail maintenance because there's a volunteer trail person that doesn't have anything to do with them that's been watching that trail for a long time. So,
yep.
And Tamarack is saying the money will not be put in our pockets. We're a team of 3. This money will be used to take care of the trails, take care of nature, and put on our conservation projects. We're just trying to prevent overuse. Especially during busy season. Nick, I feel like this is the trailhead that the locals use. I feel like this is not like a trailhead that the regular hikers are going
for. I mean, I don't know. Like, I hit that in the winter a few years ago. I think it is the lesser approach route to the Kinsmans for sure. It was a beautiful trail, but I did think it's interesting. And again, I went through this stream of Facebook comments, which was just crazy. And there were some people making points in there too that live in Vermont, and it's like 20 minents away from them. And they're like, hey, I'm getting charged for this. And it's like 15, 20 minutes away. I don't know geographically the roads and how long it actually takes, so I'm just taking that at face value for what people are saying. And then your second comment too, like I actually crossed the caretaker for the Mount Kinsman Trail when I was doing Mount Pemmy. The day after we did Owl's Head for your Winter 48, actually, I actually crossed him. He was up there. Really nice guy. And I believe he is a manager of sorts for the volunteering in sort of the area, maybe for the USFS or someone. But yeah, it's like, so I'm like, where's the money going to take care of this trail if it's like a volunteer organization that's taking care of the Mount Kinsman Trail? I don't know if they mean the parking lot or whatever, but it's kind of an interesting scenario. And the fees, like, I agree, like, I'm thinking that people were comparing it to like beach fees. Like it's a little steep, I think, for parking at a trailhead. I mean, I don't know I forget what the fees are for some like USFS areas and the whites and stuff, but I don't know. It's mixed feelings. The Adirondacks charge comparable prices for some of their big trailheads. So I don't think it's the most ridiculous thing, but I do completely understand why people are frustrated. And it definitely has this local vibe of kind of going in. Like you don't hear a lot of people chiming in, it seems like, that are in the area.
Yeah.
It's mostly people that don't.
Yeah. I mean, that backside of the Kinsmans to me is just like, I don't know. I mean, I definitely want to check it out now. And I guess there's a trailhead that's right down the street that's gets you to the same place. So it's really not that big of a deal. But I mean, the Tamarack folks just basically, the way they wrapped it up is they said, like, what would you do if you had 10 to 30 cars parked on your property every day? You see the trails deteriorating and you had to pick up more and more trash.
I can't see there being 30 cars there every day of the week. Maybe during foliage season, like I completely get that. But when I did this in the winter, there was nobody. There was 2 cars there, and I saw almost nobody all day, and that was on a Saturday. So,
right? Yeah. I mean, maybe maybe foliage season is nuts. Now that I'm thinking about it, like it could be.
I can see him getting mad about that, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, most hikers are going to be doing leave no trace principles. So they're not going to be leaving trash around, but like they could be that they're getting these tourists that are coming in the fall. But I think maybe they do seasonal and they say like, all right, well, from whatever, September 15th until November 1st, we're going to do like $20 parking. But
do like Memorial Day to Labor Day or something like beaches do.
Yeah, anyway.
Yeah. But don't know enough to get too in depth, but it's an interesting thing.
Anyway, well, okay. This next one, Nick, Justice for Leavitt's Bakery. So we've been talking about Leavitt's Bakery in North Conway. The man tried to stick it to them. So the backstory on this one, Nick, I don't know how familiar you are, but essentially this bakery in North Conway, it's on Route 16. It's like right on the other side of LL Bean. Great donuts. Awesome place to go. Definitely check it out. But they're sort of like tucked back off the side of the road. And they have this mural at the entrance of the building. The building does not face 16. It's sort of like pivoted to the right. So you sort of have to turn your head to notice it. But they worked with the local high school, and the high school put together like a mural of a sun with pastries on it. And then there's a lower section of the entrance of the bakery. And some asshole town person decided that some guy that works for the town decided that it violated their signage rules. So they threatened to fine them. And Leavitt's Bakery said, "Look, this is a free speech issue. This is not a sign. This is art. So it shouldn't be it shouldn't be defined as a sign and the local ordinances." So North Conway didn't give it up. And it went to federal court, and the judges ruled in favor of Leavitt's Bakery. And essentially, they just said that the sign ordinance that Conway has is just not specific enough for it to be enforced.
Yeah, they were saying it was unconstitutional.
Right.
I think actually, right. So I just think and I'm sure I think Stomp was commenting on the text chain we had that I doubt this is probably going to be this is going to be the end of this thing. Yeah. But it's just insane to me that it even got up to this level already. Someone. I don't know. It's one of those things you feel like someone needs something more to worry about, perhaps, than a sign that a bunch of students created. And I don't know. It's kind of crazy to me.
Yeah. It's a 23-page ruling. And I just feel like the zoning officer here is just, they're just overstepping and leave. I mean, there's already North Conway's getting to the point where they've got a lot of big box places and national chains. Leave the small businesses alone. Look the other way, or just just call it a piece of art and not a sign. But anyway, I'm glad to hear it, and I think that anybody that's in that area, if you're going to hike the moats, or you're going to go hike the Green Hills, or you're just on your way up to the presidentials, bang a left off of 16 and go into Leavitt's, get yourself some donuts and some coffee, and the place is great. It's a good little store.
Cool. Yeah, I'll have to get in there sometime. I've actually never been in there.
Yeah. All right. So justice for Leavitt's Bakery. And then what do we got next, Nick?
So next, I just pulled this article. We can link it, but it was just a reminder from New Hampshire Fish and Game. Be aware, prepared, and responsible when hiking in New Hampshire. So it's definitely just kind of an article calling out going into sort of Memorial Day weekend. I think is kind of the unofficial start, I'll say, where I think a lot of the, like 3-season hikers kind of start getting going again. So just kind of listing the 10 essentials, and it was also a plug for the New Hampshire Fish and Game Hike Safe Card. That I don't think maybe we've mentioned, at least since I've been on, but you should really pick one up. It's not necessarily insurance for you and your family, but if you do end up in trouble, I believe it helps pay for fees and stuff. And really, I look at it as like I buy a fishing license if I go fishing or things like that. It's kind of akin to that. If you're hiking, it's for a small fee. It's for a good cause,
right?
And funds something that we all really love and enjoy. So,
right, yeah, it's just a think of it as a donation to the New Hampshire Outdoor Council or something.
Exactly.
Very good. And then what do we got go? You and Stomp were like scheming on the Instagram this week. You had something going on with the Waterville Valley expansion. Tell me about this.
Yeah, so this article basically, I should say article, but it's actually an environmental impact statement that Waterville Valley Resort had to file this week. And it's funny, I actually was talking to our friend Mike Trokey about this, and it sounds like Waterville Valley's been trying to expand literally since like the 60s or something like that. Like this has been in talks for a long time. But if you do take a look, and I won't dive into anything because it's a really long kind of article and the whole statement. But basically, Waterville Valley is almost looking to double its acreage. Effectively, it's skiable acreage. And they pretty much have this whole review with the White Mountain National Forest. Some of it involves like even changing basically laws that exist around sort of the White Mountain National Forest, including like Canada Lynx territory. And yeah, it's a huge thing. I mean, we did post just sort of an open poll on our Instagram story to see how people reacted to it, and it was an overwhelmingly negative reaction. I think most people don't want to see this area get developed. If you can imagine and you are familiar with the area, it basically goes out to Green Peak. It would expand sort of out to that territory. It would effectively cover more of what people might know as the Great Range Traverse that runs from Tecumseh to Welch Dickey. So it's a huge expansion. I really find it interesting too, and this is something I stumbled upon, but there's basically an easement. I'm trying to think of the exact terminology that these ski resorts operate under a special use permit. That's what it's called, a special use permit. But like resorts like Wildcat, for example, or Waterville Valley, they operate under a special use permit within the White Mountain National Forest. Now, there's resorts like Wildcat that haven't expanded literally for decades because of this special use permit. So it's odd to me, and I don't understand enough about the legislation. Like, I'm not going to pretend about how all of this works. But it's odd to me that like Wildcat, for example, can't expand, but then Waterville Valley is over here like looking to really this acreage. I think I was going back and forth with Stomp and you a little bit, but it would almost make Waterville Valley effectively the biggest in terms of skiable acreage, like the biggest resort in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And they're saying that they're doing this to basically try to stay competitive. I don't know how a ski resort charging that amount of money. Again, I don't know ski resort economics, but it's not inexpensive to go skiing. I think everybody knows that. So it's weird for me them to turn around and say that like we think we're going to go underwater if we don't do this. But yeah, it's a whole ball of wax. I highly encourage everybody to read it, especially if you like to hike in the Whites, like most of the people listen to the show, and perhaps you love Waterville Valley in that area. I think it's a really big dramatic change. If you look on what they're planning, new buildings, more skiable terrain. It's quite the project that they're proposing right now. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes with the environmental impact statement.
Yeah, and it could be that they're going for, I think it's like over 370 acres or something that they're going for. Could be they know they're not going to get that whole amount, so they just overstate what they want, so that as they get into the back and forth over alternative ideas, then they can, they tailor it back a little bit, but they still have enough acreage there that they can makes it profitable for them. So I don't know. I'm mixed on this. Like, I do think that there is probably room for a little bit of expansion, but not as crazy as they want to do.
Yeah, I think most people probably agree with it to some point, as long as it's reasonable. And I did want to call out, just because this wasn't obvious depending what browser you're in, but if you actually do go on that page, and I highly encourage everybody to send feedback, You can email them sort of your opinions, and this kind of is the time to submit public comments to the White Mountain National Forest. If you click, there's like sort of a little bubble with 3 little dots in it. This will actually give you an email link prompt, which I don't know if it was intentional or not, but it seems less than obvious to me. It's not like a click here if you want to give feedback. Like you need to hover over that and click it to set up an email form. But I do highly encourage anybody to share their thoughts with the White Mountain National Forest about this, because it's in that phase where you should be doing that.
Yeah. And we'll keep an eye on this. Stomp's pretty close to the area. We did put a poll out on Instagram, which is definitely not scientific, but it was overwhelmingly negative. SLASR, the SLASR universe is not in favor of the expansion.
No.
And I always remind people, Waterville Valley is another one that like they do step up. Like there's been multiple rescues over the winter time where they've used their snowcats to go up and help people. So let's not get the pitchforks out on these folks, because they're thinking about their financial future in growing that area there. So and I think the deal with Waterville too is I think that they're politically connected, because isn't the Sununu guy, isn't he connected to them?
I think maybe the family used to own it or something like that.
Yeah. So we'll see. But it's getting tough out there.
Yeah, it's 2 sides to every coin, like you said, so try not to judge too hard. But it is a huge expansion if you take a look at the maps over there that we're not exaggerating about.
Yeah. So, okay, Nick, on to national stuff here. So why don't we skip the 2 that Stomp put in? We'll get those in next episode. But you the Adirondacks are near and dear to your heart. Nick is our resident Adirondack expert here.
Sure. I mean, we'll get into sort of our future plans for Memorial Day weekend. I'm going to be heading up to the Adirondacks. But on that page, I happened to stumble upon yesterday, May 20th, was what they referred to as Adirondack Day, or Adirondack Park Day. And this is because the Adirondack Park was actually created on May 20th in 1892. So it's the 133rd anniversary of the creation of the Adirondack Park in New York this week. So kind of cool. And I knew it was old. I didn't realize it was quite that old. They had some foresight back then to kind of mark off all that land to do what they did. So neat stuff.
Yeah, I've never looked into it, but I'm assuming then, so Adirondack Park existed before it was designated as it's a national forest, I'm assuming now, right?
State park.
Oh, it's a state.
Yeah, it's the New York Department of Environmental Conservation, the New York Department of Environmental Conservation, I believe, the NYDEC. Yeah, state park.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good to know. I didn't know that. For some reason, I thought it was national.
We all know that hiking a mountain can be hard at times. So here's a corny dad joke to help you get over it. Ba-dum-bum.
All right. So, Nick, do you like dad jokes?
I do.
Okay.
What do you got this week?
I feel like you've gotten the last 2 weeks in a row, so we'll see if you get this one. This one was kind of easy if you get it. What do runners do when they forget something?
I don't know.
They jog their memory.
Oh, I should have got that one.
Yeah, that's it. I thought for sure you would get that one, but anyway, all right. So speaking of jogging, we're going to be jogging up the mountains in sponsorship 48 Peaks on June 21st. Actually, when we get this show out, that will be the last day that you can donate $100 in order for you to qualify for getting the t-shirt for the 48 Peaks. But if you want to use your passion for hiking to help end Alzheimer's, join 400 plus hikers as they climb New Hampshire's 4,000 footers and create their own challenge to support the mission of the Alzheimer's Association. The annual hiker celebration will take place Saturday, June 21st at Tuckerman Brewing with raffles, food, and an amazing community. Hike that weekend or any day you want this summer. No fundraising minimums required, but those who raise $100 will receive the 2025 Performance Grade Purple t-shirt. So let's turn the White Mountains purple to end Alzheimer's. Visit alz.org/48peaks to learn more. Excellent. All right, Nick. So, and then you did say you're going to sign up for my team, right?
Yes, I actually already did and raised a little bit of money, so I'll be getting my purple shirt at some point.
Nice. Yeah, I got a little bit of money raised. I have to just throw it into my my account, so I'll be getting my purple shirt too. But all right, if you want to get not only a purple shirt, but if you want to get free stickers, check out Ski Fanatics or Spinner's Pizza Parlor in Andover, Mass, to get free SLASR stickers. And then if you're interested and you want to get SLASR swag, you can go check out the Bonfire Shop and choose between our super popular hoodies, classic or V-neck tees, and more. The color selection is great and they're priced to move, so help spread the word about SLASR and represent today.
Hey, hold my beer. It's time to find out what Mike and Stomp are drinking on this week's Beer Talk.
And then, Nick, this is the part of the show where we do beer talk, but I don't have any beer today. Do you have anything?
So I'm drinking an Athletic Brewing Co. Run Wild IPA. That's all I got tonight. Taking it easy.
I have 2 of those up in my my refrigerator that I have to open up. So,
yeah, I know our friend Kendra last week was saying they were like, it was different than an IPA that she left you to, right? Because I feel like these are the only ones I see around here. I'm going to have to go to like a bigger liquor store and see the different flavors.
Yeah.
She mentioned a lager or something.
I'll have to take a look. I got to look and see what it is exactly, but it's in the fridge, so I'll check it out.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll have more updates next week because there's a couple breweries in upstate New York that will usually hit. So I'll have some deets on up there if you're heading up that way.
Okay. Awesome.
I knew we should have gone left back there.
Stomp, don't worry. I know it's this way. I've got a feeling in my gut.
Are you sure you're not about to have a bowel emergency?
Totally. We got this.
But I just blew out my hip. Fell down that gully with my 40-year-old microspikes.
Suck it up, Stomp. It's 4 p.m. We're at 3,500 feet. We got 9 miles back to the parking lot. Your leg may be broken. We got no cell connection, and we can't feel our fingers. But we're finishing all of my list tonight. By the way, I need some water. I'm empty.
I would if I could see what I'm doing, but my headlamp batteries are dead.
You gotta be kidding me. What a chump. This is the last time I hike with you.
Whatever, mister.
Do you know me? I have a podcast.
Whatever.
Let's find out what Mike and Stomp have been hiking.
All right, and now the part of the show where we talk about recent hikes, Nick. So I have been nursing a toe injury. I had an ingrown toenail. I had to do emergency surgery on myself last week, and it didn't go well.
Oh, you're kind enough to even share a picture with some of us, so that was fantastic.
I did. I shared a close-up photo of my disgusting. Good news is I hit the treadmill today, and I'm going running in the morning, Nick, and I will be back hiking this weekend.
Excellent. So no pain, all healed, and good
all
to
good.
Go.
All good.
Awesome.
The toe looks disgusting still, but it doesn't hurt anymore.
I'm glad to hear.
Yeah. The plan for the weekend is I am actually not going up to Maine until I think Saturday night now because we get a nor'easter coming in. So we decided we're just going to stick around. The whole clan is back from college, so we're all going to hunker down tomorrow and Friday night and hope that we don't get slammed by the nor'easter, and then head up to Maine on Saturday. And then I'll probably get out locally. Normally I go up to Mount Washington, but I don't know if I'm going to push it with my toe. I might just do Burnt Meadow or Pleasant Mountain in Maine.
Yeah, the weather looks interesting too. Hopefully everything sort of blows out by Saturday as far as rain and precipitation. But I know they're saying like Mountain Forecast has like 8 or 9 inches of snow, I think, on some of the high peaks and the whites and stuff over this period. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, hopefully the weather won't be as bad in the Adirondacks for you.
No, so I already mentioned heading up for this weekend. We're leaving on Friday morning, coming back on Tuesday. We're sort of doing the extended thing because just didn't want to hit traffic on Monday and we all had the vacation time. But yeah, staying up with some friends around Schroon Lake, hoping to bag a new high peak. I'm like halfway through at this point, and I'm kind of running out of ones that have really good views and also ones that have quote unquote sort of reasonable mileage to do with people that the people that I'm hiking with, another group of kind of hiking friends and who originally got into hiking with. But yeah, I was reading some reports last week. We're looking at doing Mount Colden, which is sort of in between Marcy and Algonquin, if you know the area. But yeah, there's like a lot of snow, I guess, still on the north side of Colden. So the loop I was looking at, I'm kind of looking to get some intel. Things can change fast in a week, obviously up in the mountains as far as snow melt. But was looking at doing either Mount Colden, kind of out and back, not going through Avalanche Pass, coming up sort of the backside through Lake Arnold. As far as if we do sound like snow, like I'm just we'll pull the plug on that plan and maybe bag a high peak that I've already gotten that's got some views, or maybe do something lower. There's actually this list I hadn't heard of called the Lake Placid Niners.
Yes.
Which is all like sort of pseudo 52 with a viewish in the Adirondacks. It's like 9 peaks. And they're all like more 3,000, 2,000, even shorter foot range, but all really good views. Some are even like upwards of 2,500 feet of gain. I think like Hurricane Mountain and maybe Catamount and a few others. So we'll check those out. Like I said, we're just going to watch weather. I'm trying not to get my heart really set on doing much and just looking to have fun times with people out there and not push it too hard. So,
okay. And then what, if you do get a 4,000 footer, what number will that be for you?
23. 23. It would be, I'm at 22 right now. So I'm like almost halfway through the 46.
Do you, like when we were doing the winter 4,000 foot, I felt like every season I'd be like, all right, I can bang out like 10 or 12 of these. Are you at the point now with the Adirondacks where you're like, well, I can get like 6 or 7 a year, or do you don't even think that far ahead?
I'm not really thinking that far ahead, just logistically, because it's further. It's just tough to get to, and just with other things going on in life. Like me and Ash just bagged 2 more in the winter. We did Street and I, so probably on average getting out there like once or twice a year. I'm not in like a super rush. It is something I want to do over time. And I just like exploring. I'm trying to have the mindset kind of almost like, some of the crew that like you've kind of introduced me to, like there's other places to check out other than the high peaks. Like there's all these great spots that like Mount Joe I've never done, and we've done Van Hovenberg and a couple others like the Owl's Head out there. But there's all these peaks like Catamount and Hurricane and stuff that have really good views and have scrambles and challenges too. And we just, again, you get kind of blinders on looking at the high peaks. Right. So I'm trying to have an open mind of like, oh, well, if I'm not bagging another high peak, like let's just have fun and have some views. And, made some reservations at the Adirondack Mountain Reserve some of the days for some options. And I also want to get out with Rylan on my back one day and probably let her hike a little bit. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, fingers crossed for good weather for all of us. Sunday, Monday is looking definitely better. Hopefully it stays that way. Yeah.
So, all right. So now, Nick, we'll report back. We'll actually be able to actually report on some hiking, and hopefully these weekend weather situation will be a little bit better. I'm sick of this already.
Dude, doing the observatory forecast every week, it's been rain Saturday, just every week.
Yeah, it's brutal. I think it's like 6 weeks in a row now or something.
Yeah, it seems like it.
We've had a couple of nice days on the weekends, but no, we need 3 days in a row of nice weather, please.
Yes, please.
It's time for Slasher's Notable Hike of the Week. If you want to be considered for the Hike of the Week, simply tag Slasher on your social media post.
All right, notable listener hikes of the week. So we didn't get last week in here, so we're going to get notable hikers in here. So we got about 10 or so here. So RK Lacus, they did one of my favorite loops here, Mount Chikora and Middle Sister. So they went up Piper, down Liberty, Hammond, Weedemo after a night at the Jim Liberty cabin. I like this. My only criticism is I would go up Carter Ledge, but with the way the weather's been, maybe it was too slick. So, but that's fun. Okay. Jim Liberty cabin. I think I get the vibe that Jim Liberty cabin is haunted, but if you want to stay there, go nuts. Have you ever stayed there?
No, I was going to ask, is that like on the southeastern side of Chikora? I've only done Chikora. Done Chikora twice, and one time was with Middle Sister, and I've done Middle Sister, and I've only gone up Chapney Falls. So I have a lot to explore on that mountain. Correct. But I'm not familiar.
Yeah. So essentially it is when you exit the summit, instead of going back towards Piper, you hook around to I think it's the southeast, and you come around the other way, and then you go by Jim Liberty cabin and then down Weedemo, and then that reconnects with Piper way down low. So it's just another way to get down in the valley.
Yeah, that mountain's freaking awesome. The day I did Middle Sister was like I went over the sisters on the way over there to Chikora. Didn't see any. I saw one person on the summit from far away and didn't see anybody all day. Had I think it was like the day after Thanksgiving a few years ago. But one of the best hiking days I've had as far as taking photos and just a really cool vibe.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I was just looking through all my Chikora photos, and yeah, the photos are amazing. Like the views and from Middle Sister and Chikora are amazing because there was a lady who posted a picture of her friend from the 90s. I don't know if you saw this or not, but it was her. It was her and her dad, and I think her dad might have passed away. He was a big hiker, and she was a little girl at the time, and she's like, my friend is looking to figure out where this mountain is that she hiked with her dad so that she can hike it in his memory. So everyone was kind of looking to try to figure it out. And I think for the consensus was it was either Osceola or Chikora. I'm pretty sure it was Chikora, but it was a very hard picture to figure out because it was only just a little slice of the views out into the mountains, and then it was mostly just the father and daughter in the foreground. So it was kind of fun, like sleuthing around. And I loaded the picture into AI to ask them their opinion, and they had said Chikora. And then I had pulled my Chikora photos, and I was trying to match it up, and I think I got it. It's sort of like, I think the angle they were looking at was like Paugus and Whiteface, and then out to Franconia, but I wasn't 100% sure.
Yeah, gorgeous views from that. I'd like to doing the 52 of the view. You kind of get a better awareness. Like even I might have shared it on our story, but like I took some pictures of Chikora Lake, like when I'd done the Wildcats in the morning a while back. But it's cool from Chikora Lake, like you can see like that whole like Paugus, Whiteface past the Conway bowl over to Chikora. Like I would not have known what those were without kind of doing that list.
Yeah. So,
anyways,
yeah, I think that. We can talk about Chikora forever here, but then we got to talk about our friends Dave Schitz and Liz Fay, our notable hikers. So they did Eagle Cliff and then Red Hill, North Peak. So I think Red Hill is in like Molten Borough. I think it has like a fire tower there, I believe. So,
I'm assuming a 500 highest.
Yes, I would think so. So congratulations, Dave and Liz. You're not getting the notable hike, Dave, so forget about it. But we'll.
Is it weird that you guys made me sign like some agreement that I can't give Dave notable hiker ever?
Don't tell him that. So,
sorry, I forgot that was private information.
Excellent. So our friend Heart Disease Hiker 75 got Table Mountain on the 52 with a view. So Bear Notch Road is open and Table Mountain is ready to go. So that was, I saw some pictures on that one. That was a good one. And then Northeast Discovery got Mount Nancy. And they had reported that there's minimal snow left, which is great.
Have you ever been up there, Mike? Or no?
No, I have not.
Yeah, they were saying how it's not a 4,000 foot or anything. I've heard good things from like Gwen and a few other people that it's a worth checking out kind of area. And I think Dave Schitz as well was saying it's a cool area out there. But
yeah, it's like in that Carrageen location there. So yeah, Nancy Pond. I haven't really gone out in that area much. I even Ethan Pond I haven't gone to. So I got to get out there.
Yeah.
And then Brady Girl won. She gridded out her isolation 12 out of 12. So that's impressive. That's got to be a leading contender.
Yeah. I saw that and I was like, that's just because I think I've got 3 months and I'm like going back to isolation 9 months. Like that's a lot. Yep.
And then our friend Mr. Conley Hikes was doing trail maintenance. He's another trail maintainer.
Yeah, thanks for maintaining.
Yes, thank you very much. The upper 2 miles of the Liberty Trail on Chikora. So thank you for that. And next up is Summit Snack Attack out there doing, our friend Andy out there doing Jefferson and Clay. So good for him. And then our friend Rhonda Willette did a Z-Bonge Traverse. That's another one that's out there. So Nick, I will let you pick so that I'm not responsible.
Oh, since I'm legally obligated, and this is the only reason, Dave. Otherwise, I would give it to you guys. I love you, Dave. But I'm going to give it to Brady Girl 1 for gridding isolation.
Yes.
Again, anybody that grids, that's pretty hardcore. And gridding isolation itself, like you kind of mentioned, like that has to be one of the sort of, other than like the bonds, that has to be a kind of crux one to go and hit that thing 12 times. In all the months, and especially in the spring and April and stuff. I can't imagine how wet and mucky it must be in there to do that.
Oh yeah. This must have been a gross like hiking in a river. So that's good. But all right. So this is all good stuff, Nick. We're moving along here. So now we're gonna sit down with our friend Mike Cherim from Redline Guiding, and he's gonna share a bunch of stories, talk a little bit about what he's up to. So why don't we move into that, and then we'll come out the other side.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Doodle-doo-doo.
It's time for SLASR's Guest of the Week. Very cool, very cool.
Come on, Rosie. Come on up. You can be.
Hey. I remember you.
Just in case you didn't know, she's the bestest girl in the whole wide world.
She is.
Excellent.
You're a good girl.
All right, Nick, I'm recording. I'm ready whenever you are.
Me too. I'm good.
All right. So, Mike, what's the name of the dog again?
Rosie.
Rosie. Now, how long have you had Rosie?
Just over a year.
Just over a year. Were you a dog guy before? I feel like the last time we talked, I can't remember.
Cat.
You had a cat,
And I still have the cat.
All right. Now, have you been hiking with the dog?
A dog person.
Yeah.
I just I lost a dog like 15 years ago, and it took me. Let's just say it took me a little while to get over it.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
15 years.
Now, are you do you hike with the dog now?
She's older. She's 9. So I take her out. But we do just shorter stuff.
All right. So that's cool. You adopted an elderly dog or an older dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Do you have a general opinion about dogs and that there's definitely been a few high profile rescues of dogs up in the Prezzies and stuff, but do you have a general, you're out there all the time. Do you have a general philosophy about dogs?
Well, yeah, people need to know their dogs and what their capabilities are, no different than people. I think, we have to be extra aware that when you're out there with a dog that they're probably going to be, unless they're leashed, they're going to be running back and forth. They're going to be hiking twice as many miles as you. So you just kind of have to allow for that. And, just like you would taking a kid out, you don't want to take the kid into a situation that's above his or her head.
Yeah. Especially with the dogs will follow you forever, and they won't whine like the kids. They'll just keep going
until they stop.
Yes,
and decide not to move anymore. And I know somebody, I won't say who it is, but they called me up 10 o'clock night. Mike, can you rescue us? And I met them and a few other friends, and we went up Glen Boulder Trail. They were just a little ways past Glen Boulder. Yeah. And they had a 90-pound black lab that...
Oh, geez.
She had taken him on a hike that was 18 miles. I think they started up Davis Path.
Yeah.
That's a long day.
Yeah, it's just kind of really ridiculous to do that. And the dog his paws were bleeding. And he said, I'm not doing this anymore. And it was too cold to spend the night there. So we went up. We didn't have a litter. I have a sling for Rosie if I need to carry her, which would be a lot. She's almost 70 pounds. But this dog was even bigger. This was a 90-pound dog. And we ended up taking 2 trekking poles, putting them together, used some cordelette, some cord, some paracord or whatever, and just did a ton of wraps. And then we laid a down coat underneath and just picked them up, Egyptian style over our shoulders. At first, the dog was a little aggressive until he realized that we were trying to help him, and then he completely settled down and nobody got hurt. We got out of there. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. So.
Yeah. I've definitely seen a fair bit. That's one thing I hope with the podcast. We've highlighted probably 5 or 6 of these rescues and tried to get the word out about the pack-a-paw slings. And even those slings can be difficult with the big dogs, so you don't want to push the big dogs as much because they're tough to carry. But it does seem like those are the dogs that get in the most trouble. That once they start bleeding the paws, then they're not moving, and it's hard to get them going.
Yeah. And I was hiking one time with a tiny... I'm trying to remember the name of the dog. They're really smart, black and white. Can't remember the name.
Just an Aussie Shepherd?
Springer Spaniel or something?
Nope, none of those. Jack Russell Terrier? Maybe?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And he was just small. He was 8 pounds, something like that. And we were on Bondcliff, and he decided he wasn't walking anymore. And I said, he should be all right. I carried him for a little bit, and then I set him down. And what it was, he stepped on something. It hurt his paw. And it's no different than walking to a coffee table and barking your shin. At first, you don't want to touch it. It hurts. And then, 10 minutes later, you're fine. So, and the dog was fine, was able to walk out. And that dog hiked all the time. So this was an anomaly.
Yeah, I've seen some crazy stuff. Like I saw there was a bulldog going up East Osceola one time, and the dog was hurting bad. And that was like when I first started hiking, and I didn't really know any better. Like I didn't say anything. I was just kind of like, yeah, that dog doesn't look like it's doing too well. And it was in the steep section of East Osceola.
And they were going up.
They were going up, and then I don't know what happened. I think we were going down, and I sort of was, it was back when I just had started hiking, so I didn't know any better, and I just always wonder what happened that day. But I have a feeling they didn't make it, and the dog made him turn around. But
and that's
it was
a
bulldog.
great case for the mountain will be there another day. They should have been going down in that situation, not going up and forcing the dog to get deeper into trouble.
Right, yeah, I agree. And then I saw, one time I ran into a guy that was coming down the Piper Trail, and he was carrying his golden retriever over his shoulder. It was like the end of the trail, and the dog was kind of funny. He was like looking at me, and I said, let me give you a hand. It was like right at the end of the trail, and we got the dog to the car, and he put the dog down. He's like, yeah, the dog won't move, and then the dog like jumped right into the back of the car. It was like,
I'm good now. Let's go.
I was like, I think that dog kind of snookered you, buddy. So
we've done rescues like that before with people.
Oh yeah, I bet.
Yeah, you get to the parking lot, and all of a sudden they're miraculous recovery, and they decide not to go to the hospital, and they just hop in their car and go home.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, if we have 30 people doing a litter care to get them off the mountain.
Right.
I feel like you'd at least like fake it and make it. Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of a bold. It's a bold move.
Sir, ma'am, what's your chief complaint? I'm tired.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you probably figure like one out of 20 or 30 of those is just somebody that's just met their mental limit, but physically they could go on, but they just, for whatever reason, I need a rescue.
One time we did a rescue in the Great Gulf. I guess patient, you could say, had gone into the river and was soaking wet. This is what we were told. This is how it was conveyed to us. And we drove up the auto road. This was in winter, so they unlocked the gate. We went up as far as Wamsutta, I guess. And we hauled butt down that trail. It was pretty icy and dangerous. And we made it okay, but it was pretty dangerous. And we get down there, and there's this couple with a couple dogs, and they are sitting under a boulder. They're having some hot coffee or something. Neither person is wet. And I'd come to find out he had stepped and went through the ice, and he got wet up to his knee. So his boots were wet, but he had spare everything. And they were actually from New York, and they were doing training in the Whites for search and rescue. So they had orange vests and everything, and we escorted them out. They walked themselves out. There was no injuries. We really shouldn't have been there. They could have gotten out by themselves. Did
they know which way to go to try to get out? Were they like disoriented?
They got in and they had maps. And they were actually pretty experienced search and rescue people. And oddly, they looked more the part than we did. Because of all the orange vests, and they had reflectors on, and they were like search and rescue professionals from New York State, probably in their Adirondacks. And it was kind of funny because we're hodgepodge,
Yeah.
So it looked like they were rescuing us.
Wow. Now, you brought up the Great Gulf, and I actually meant to. We're gonna introduce you in a second, Mike.
At some point, we'll get into
we're
this.
Here with Mike Cherim from Redline Guiding here. So thanks for coming back.
Yeah, thank you, Mike.
Here, Mike.
My pleasure.
But yeah, we're getting right into this. But you had mentioned the Great Gulf. I wanted to ask you. So last week we had talked about making, this is the time of the year where people have to be aware of not only, you always want to keep an eye on the weather reports, but like reading river flow and the gauge heights and things like that. And then like also there's the update that the Forest Service put out about the bridge that goes over the west branch of the Peabody River, and they're rerouting the Appalachian Trail. What is your take on that section there? And my take on this, and maybe I'm wrong, but you can correct me, and I've been out in the Great Gulf a bunch, but I'm assuming that once we get to a low point, we've got a period like maybe in a month from now where we've got like a week or two where there's not a lot of rain and the gauge gets down there. You'll be able to rock hop across some of those sections there, but I don't know what your perspective is on how big of a deal that closure is.
I think they're going to reroute the trail temporarily, so they'll find a better place to cross, but that is a dangerous crossing. Wilderness areas don't usually have any infrastructure unless it's for safety. So the fact that bridge is there, it's because it's a dangerous crossing. I do hope that they replace the bridge with something similar, because that's one of the most fun bridges to cross.
Right.
Everybody bounces on it, and it's very lively. So,
yeah.
it's not the best crossing in the Whites. That's up in the southern Mahoosucs. On Yellow Trail, I think it is.
Yeah,
there's a trolley.
Oh, yes.
Really?
Yeah,
I've seen videos of that, I think, before. That looks fun.
It's so grossly overbuilt for the tiny stream that it's fording or crossing. So.
Yeah, and then
this time of the year, it's dangerous. People to think, rain on snow, snow melt, all of this combined to really make the waters high.
Yeah. Do you spend a lot of time looking at the river gauge readings and things like that, or do you just have a sense from driving around?
I do if there's a question. Typically, if it's going to be like that, I would just opt to do something that doesn't involve a big crossing. So,
okay.
Or in the case of Black Pond Bushwhack, you can avoid Lincoln Brook and the first crossing on, Franconia Brook and the first crossing on Lincoln Brook. And then you still have a couple more crossings to go, but and I think there's a rule of thumb of if it's over 600 cubic feet per second or something, don't try. Yes. But that may be relative to the bigger crossings. I know Franconia Brook, I don't really think there's a way to rock hop that. I did rock hop it, and I also rock hopped Lincoln Brooks. I never had to wade in the Pemigewasset Wilderness, but it was during a period of extremely dry weather, and it had been prolonged over a month of no rain and stuff. So fire dangers were pretty high, put it that way.
Yeah. I generally I try not to mess around with the water crossings, and I don't get out that much in April and May either. So usually by mid-June, you're okay. You can pick your spots.
Yeah,
but
I'll go south to the Belknaps and stuff at this time of the year. Although now it's fine, but during the monorail season, I'm not a big fan of that.
Yeah. Well, Mike, why don't you just do a little recap and introduce yourself again? Give a quick recap of your life story and how you became,
sure,
the owner of Redline Guiding.
I had a major change in my life now 15 years ago, I guess, and I sold my old company, and I had an opportunity to reinvent myself, for lack of a better way to put it. And I was hiking at the time. I had quit smoking, which was a huge change for me. And I was getting my youth back, really. And I needed to do something. I'd sold my company. I was going to be on a gravy train for about 5 years. I needed to do something. And I said, I'm going to become a mountain guide. I went to IMCS in North Conway, and I contacted Brad White, which was the owner back then, and somebody else owns it now. I told him I want to be a mountain guide, and he says, "Okay, well, what kind of grade do you climb and stuff?" Wanting to know, 5'10" rock or whatever, whether I ice climbed or not. And I said, I don't do any of that stuff. I do now, but I didn't then, and I just want to be a hiking guide. And he looked at me and he laughed. I mean, in the nicest way. He's an awesome person. I really like him. We're friends. And he says, "There's no such thing as a hiking guide." So I wasn't deterred by that. And there's no formal progression. There is for hunting and fishing guides in New Hampshire, but not for mountain guiding or hiking or anything like that. And I just kind of looked at, okay, what kind of skills do I need to do this? I did WFR, Wilderness First Responder. I did Avalanche 1. I did leadership school. I did L&T. I did all these things, everything that I could think of. And I guided for Meetup for a couple of years because I figured this is going to be a good time for me to kind of get my feet wet and understand people dynamics on trail. And then I also was training to become a leader for the AMC. And this is around the time I started working for someone else and became a professional guide, but not working for myself yet. And I became a Class 1 leader for the AMC, which is the highest level that they go in New Hampshire chapter. I never did guide for the AMC, but I did all the guiding and everything that I needed to get to that point. Something about once you get paid, it's hard to go back,
Right.
and do it for free. I give back plenty. We're having like the 31st, we have Trails Day. We'll meet at the soccer district at 9 a.m. and we'll work all day. We're going to work on the Kearsarge North Trail, brushing it out and brushing in certain spots to keep people on a actual treadway. I do volunteer. I do search and rescue, obviously. And so I do volunteer. But I just don't guide for free anymore. Now I do that. It's all for money. So
yeah, that makes total sense. For people that aren't familiar with Redline Guiding, I know we had you on Pud's podcast. It feels like for me not that long ago that I talked to you, but do you want to kind of describe some of the different things that Redline Guiding offers? I know like hiking, climbing, but do you want to go a little bit more in depth into that?
Yeah, well, we have three main categories. We have adventures, we have education, and we do weddings. I'm a justice of the peace.
Oh, yes. How could I forget?
So that's definitely the smaller aspect of the company. The biggest aspect of the company is our adventures and our educational offerings. We do 16 different courses, including wilderness first aid. We don't offer avalanche training, but that's just about the only thing we don't offer. But we do intro to rock, intro to ice. We do river crossing skills course, mountaineering skills, hiking intro. There's a number of them. They're just kind of like all in a constellation of offerings, if you will. The adventure offerings, we are more or less on demand with what people want to do. If they come to us and say, hey, I want to do something cool and interesting, we'll take them up something cool and interesting. A lot of times they come to us and they say, hey, I want to do Mount Washington. I want to go up Lionhead Winter. I'd heard about it. Or I want to, this time of the year, people will start reaching out to us about Huntington Ravine. It's a popular one that we guide a lot of people on. And, we carry ropes and stuff for Huntington just in case we get in a situation where we need to, do a hip belay or short rope them, or something like that, which will increase their comfort level and their confidence and make them hike better.
Is it that section? Just the fan section that they?
Well, the fan opens up to the slab on the right.
Right.
And typically people are okay with that. There's a couple of other spots about midway up that are awkward.
Yeah, there's a short guy section there that's not great.
Yeah, you climb up this steep thing, you may be 10 or 12 feet. It's not that, if you fell, you wouldn't die, but it would hurt.
Yeah.
And you have to step around the boulder.
Mm-hmm.
And this boulder is, size of, I don't know, the trunk of a car or something, like a cubic yard of rock. And you have to stick out there just almost at your tipping point. And that is really uncomfortable. There's nothing really on top of the boulder to hold on to. So you're just kind of like, it's a wing and a prayer. You're kind of like going on trust. Once you do it a few times and you're confident, it's not that big of a problem. But if you're doing it for the first time, it's an awkward move. But the rest of it, the chimney's not too bad. The chimney has getting into the chimney, stepping the right way. That's kind of a high step. So that can be challenging to people. And some people are freaked out by the slab. We see a lot of people that go the wrong way on the slab. They'll go up to the slab and they'll kind of veer to the left and they end up in a corner. And they can't go up at that point unless they're rock climbers.
Yeah. And
coming down at that point is terrifying for them. So we've done verbal coaching for people. Like we see them headed that way. It's like, no, you should go this way. And, there are yellow blazes. That's one of the only trails in the White Mountains that's that they sanction having blazes above tree line painted on rock. Not supposed to do that in the whites.
Yeah, I mean, I go right up the crevice. Like in my mind, and again, I don't have much experience with rock climbing, but from my perspective, I've always felt like the first time I did that, I was like, yeah, I'm going to stick my foot in that crevice as best I can. That's going to give me the grip. And, it's not comfortable, obviously.
And you're talking about the slab portion?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you just kind of follow your way up there and then,
one thing to be aware of on that is there's a rivulet of moisture.
Yep.
That's slippery.
Okay.
So you just have you see it. It's not hidden or anything, but you see it and you just step over it. Don't step in it.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise your feet could slip out. But I mean, the first time I did hunting in a ravine, I was wearing Keens. Yeah. Keens aren't great on rock. So I wear approach boots now by La Sportiva and, they're very grippy on rock, but I made it. So it was, even with Keens, it's doable. So you do kind of, you kind of have to take a deep breath and kind of go. It can be a little intimidating, especially looking at it. So once you get past that slab, though, you just step to the right, and now you're on a flat plateau, and it's like, woo, that was cool.
I did it.
Yeah. Well, only, a couple more crux sections left to go.
Now, when you have clients that reach out, like, how is your intake process? Are you pretty good about, is your philosophy like, yeah, we'll take people on whatever adventures they want, or are you able to?
Pretty much.
If somebody says, I want to go to Huntington, and you start digging around, like, I'm assuming you have to dig around and go, like, how much hiking have you done? What
we ask a bunch of questions. We talk about gear, and we have rental gear if they need it. So, sometimes people will, so they'll reach out to us. Sometimes we'll just get a booking form, but most of the time they either email us or call or something. I say, hey, I want to do this. I'll tell them, that's great. We can help you. Fill out our booking form. It's not a payment gateway, so they're not making a financial commitment at that time, but it helps us. And I look at, I do look at weight. I look at their age. I look at their height and stuff like that. But I try not to make any assumptions about their fitness based on that information. But we do ask them, what's your fitness level? And I'm a little tricky on this, is that there are only 4 responses. Not very fit, somewhat fit, moderately fit, and very fit. And I do that intentionally because I don't want that middle. I don't want them checking C, like one of those tests. Yeah. It makes them lean one way or the other, which is telling. And then I ask them on the form what kind of day they're expecting. Vigorous or, relaxed. I think it's from relaxed to vigorous, and there's like 5 or 6 choices in between. And that can send up red flags. If, say, they are somewhat fit or not very fit, and they want to have a relaxed day, Mount Washington isn't necessarily the right mountain for them. So we'll talk to them about that and say, it's 4,200 feet of elevation gain. It's 4.2 miles in the summertime, and it's a big mountain. It's tough. And I've even had guests done Rainier, and they said, oh, Mount Washington is tougher. I don't agree. I think Rainier is tougher, but we've had people say that. So, but we will, people that come to us either with an objective, a lot of times that is the case. They're working on the grid, or they're working on their 48, and they don't want to do a particular section, let's say the Northern Presidentials in the wintertime. They don't want to do those by themselves. They don't have any friends that are qualified or good to do it, so they'll hire us to do it. Same thing with Terrifying 25 trails. Sometimes people will say, hey, I want to do 6 husbands, but I don't want to go out alone. So they'll hire us as a companion, but not just a companion, because we guided this one fellow. He was an AMC Class 1 leader, perfectly qualified and perfectly suited, but he just didn't want to go by himself, and he didn't have anybody. And I have to applaud him, because it wouldn't be smart to go by yourself and do these things in the wintertime. And, if anything happens and you're kind of like stuck, you can die. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. I find it really interesting too, how you break people down or make them choose sort of a category of fitness. Do you see people tend to overestimate or underestimate kind of
almost always,
in general?
Almost always.
Overestimate?
Yeah.
Okay.
If they put moderately fit, we are thinking, unless they have experience hiking in the whites, we're thinking we're going to kind of class them in our heads anyways, somewhat fit. So a lot of people look at the mileage too, but they don't understand elevation gain. Yeah. They say, I walk in the city all the time. I do 8 to 10 miles a day. I count my steps, and it's like, it's not the same thing.
No, I remember the first hike that I ever did with my wife that made me pay attention to elevation gain. I think we were very early in our 48, and we did an outback of Liberty and Flume. And I was looking at it being 11 miles or whatever, and I was like, oh, like whatever. And that hike, especially at the time, like we were still in jeans and sweatshirts, like I kicked our butts pretty good. And it was kind of one of those like, oh, like how much elevation gain, that kind of caught my eye compared to like we had done the Kinsmans and maybe Moose Lock up to that point, or at least North Kinsman Moose Lock. But
I'm assuming that you said out back, so I'm assuming you went Liberty Spring.
Yeah, we did Liberty Spring, so that big up and down between Flume. And I remember especially the grind when you go back up to Liberty from Flume, like just destroyed us at the time. And like literally, I remember we were staying with my parents, and we got back to the house we were staying at around Newfound Lake. And my mom was like, "Oh, what did you do to her?" kind of deal. Because Ash, my wife, like literally was like hobbling, like got on the couch, like couldn't get up, kind of just the muscular fatigue you feel when you do something like that and you've never done it before. And you kind of push it.
I have to hand it to you, Nick.
Yeah.
You didn't go up flume. You didn't just look at the map and say, "Oh, this looks like a good loop."
No,
you did a little bit of research to come up with that plan.
Yeah, even back then, and I mean, this is probably kicking not like super long ago, but still like 2014-ish maybe. So it was a little bit before Facebook groups were as big and the information was out there as much. Like I remember looking at like probably old forum posts, and I don't even think I definitely didn't have the 4,000 footer like guide at that point. But I do remember being like, "Oh, the flume slide's like a pretty gnarly thing. Like I don't think we want to go for." And it was also the fall, so I was thinking wet leaves. We weren't totally unprepared. Like we had boots and we had water and kind of all that stuff and layers. But yeah, to your point, Mike, that elevation gain, I think until you do it, like you don't get like what a 4,000, like to me, like in the whites, like a 2,500, 3,000 foot, that's like a pretty solid day. When you get to 4,000, that's a good day. And if you get to 5,000 plus, like you're talking, that's a lot of elevation gain to do. I think plus even if you're in really good shape, that's a lot.
Plus the trail itself.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's not like it's graded and you're going uphill. You're rock hopping and
yeah, of course. Like, I mean, you're thinking whether if it's kind of like scree, you're just trying to keep your balance half the day, or if it's wet, like it's not like you're just walking uphill. Like to your point, people, like I walk 2 or 3 miles a day, it's like great, but do you walk on slippery slab and leaves and all this crap and you're carrying maybe 10, 15 pounds on your back, and it's way different than just walking or running or whatever on pavement around your house.
Yeah. One day we were doing a hike, same area. We went up Skumchuk, did the full range traverse. We were on flume, and our plan was to go back to Liberty and head down that way, and none of us wanted to do it. And it was early spring. There was people coming up trail from flume, or coming up flume. We'd started really early. There's still people coming up, and we asked them, "So what's the trail like?" I said, "Oh, you don't want to go down that way." And we knew that we didn't want to go down that way as well. So we were kind of like stuck between a rock and a hard place. And I kind of looked at the flume slide itself right from the summit. And it's just rocks or grapefruit-sized rocks or whatever. And I was like, we can probably do this. If it's not too mobile, we could probably just go down this pretty easily. And we all decided, let's go for it. We tried. And it was all sun-baked, so it was just rocks. And we made it down, no problem at all. It wasn't very sketchy. The hardest part of that was when we got to the bottom, because this was spring. It's an avalanche zone. Yeah. So the snow there was like 5 feet deep. We're like pushing through it. But we were only 100 yards or so from Flume Slide Trail. So we just headed south, hit the trail within 100 yards. And it was like, and all the hard stuff was behind us. So I was like, wow, that was actually a smart way to do it.
That's cool.
Not that I would recommend it to others, not unless they really know what they're getting into and experienced and whatnot. So I don't want to send the wrong message here to your listeners.
Yeah.
I don't want to appear cavalier, because I'm not. I'm a big chicken. When I think carefully about what I'm getting into. I don't want to be that guy. And not with Facebook groups nowadays. My God, you mess up out there and you're going to get eviscerated online.
Oh yeah, people are like wolves out there for sure. Sure.
Well, they got their armchair and they got their beer, so they're ready to give instruction.
That's true.
Armchair quarterbacking, right? Is that what they call it?
Right. Right. Oh. Yeah, and I think just going back to the whole distance over elevation, I do think that like that Flume Slide Trail, there's always 2 or 3 rescues a year that come out where it's like, you can read into it where they'll say they were woefully unprepared. And I think what happens is they just look at the distance and they go, oh, well, this is an easy trailhead and it's only a couple miles. And they don't look at those contour lines and realize like, oh, wow, you're going up like a very steep section.
Each one of those is 100 feet of gain?
Right. They don't get it. But related to, so we got a lot of listeners that are doing their summer planning and they've got big adventures in mind. So I wanted to just rapid fire, Mike, a couple of sort of bucket list things for you. So if you've got listeners that are thinking about doing a PEMI traverse, do you have any advice for them? Any thoughts around how to approach that?
Well, figure out, first of all, whether they want to try it in a day or whether they want to break it up. And then I guess just study the maps, read the guidebook, see what to expect in the trails. Like Garfield Ridge is pretty gnarly. So they just have to figure out how they want to do it. Check the mileage and stuff. It would not be a first hike. It would be something that's like, we've been hiking for a while. Yeah, we still got the bonds to do.
What's the stats for the Pemi Loop while we're on the subject? What is it, like 10,000 feet of elevation gain? Like something 30 like miles, something like that?
Something like that.
Depending if you add do most people just skip West Bond and North Twin? So you just sort of, you're just really going up to North,
it depends
South
on
Twin
the people, and it depends on whether they need them or not.
Okay.
And some people will go ahead and grab Zealand on a
that's true. I guess you got Galehead too, whether you want to run up from the hut and grab that or not. So a
lot of it's whether they have an objective. If they're working on their 48, they're probably going to make a point to hit these peaks. But sometimes, sometimes you're just tired at the time and it doesn't get done. And I've experienced this, like when I did the long trail. Right there, I think it's Menden Peak from Killington. It's like, it looks like about a mile bushwhack. And it's even like a little herd path here. It's like, my friend Bill, it's like, come on, Bill, let's go do it. And he's like, no. So we ended up going to the summit of Killington and having our first beer in 15 days or 10 days or whatever. Same thing on that particular trip with Big J. Didn't do it. It was right there. We could have gone for it. So, but we had an agenda, and it's extra bushwhacking, and we had big packs, obviously, doing the long trail. So, I would say, to anybody that wants to do something like this, just do your research first, so you really have a solid idea what you're getting into, and then you can make an educated decision about whether you're going to do an out and back to Galehead, or whether you're going to go ahead and bag North Twin or whatever, or West Bond. So,
figure out your water strategy as well, which is a big deal sometimes. So
if people were spending the night at Geo, then West Bond's almost inevitable. It seems like it's kind of like a rite of passage to go have dinner on West Bond and then head back to Geo to sleep. So.
Yeah. What about we get a lot of listeners too that are just starting off with their 4,000 footer list. And, some people don't hike over the winter, so they're thinking like, all right, I want to knock off 5 or 6 this summer. What do you generally advise for people that are just starting the 4,000 footers? Maybe they've done a few and they're getting their level of confidence up.
Well, if it's their first one, I usually recommend Pierce.
Mm-hmm.
And I do that because it's foreshadowing of what's coming next when they are sitting there on Pierce and looking at the presidentials.
That's a cool idea.
They can see Jefferson, they can see Clay, they can see Washington, they can see everything in the southern. They don't see Adams and Madison. That's all they're missing from that viewpoint. And so it gives them it fires up the addiction, and it helps motivate them for the next climb and stuff like that. I also tell them I would recommend that people go on a popular day with good weather at a time where people are going to be on mountain. So, say plan on starting on trail at 7 or 8 a.m. And, and pay attention to the weather. There's no real surprises on Pierce. There's no real scrambles or anything. So it's a good one to start on. And like I said, it really kind of like lights the fire under them. So, whereas if you're doing another mountain, let's say you're doing Hale, that's also an easy one, even though there's a little bit of a crossing there, but it's pretty easy. It's pretty straightforward, but they get up there and there's like a pile of rocks and you don't really have any views because all the trees have grown up since, after the fire. And, so they may lose motivation or they may lose their gumption to do that. If they see it's like, oh, this was fun, but Pierce is different because they're like, wow, look at that. And it's so beautiful up there. It's just stunning, the views. And I'm not one of these people, I don't need far views. I'm good with close-up views. Foggy days, I'm good with hiking on foggy days. Makes me see things that I might look past on a normal day.
Yeah, I always think clouds can add character sometimes, where it's nice to have like a blue sky, like clear blue sky, like Bluebird Day, whether you're in the winter or even in the summer or whatever time of year. But I do feel like sometimes it's nice to have some definition, some clouds up in the sky. Or everybody loves the days when you get undercast. Like we got a crazy day when I hiked Adams Madison for my winter with Mike, where we had that stretch like a couple winters back where it was just beautiful undercast. It seemed like for 2 or 3 days in a row. Yeah. And that was just something epic. But of course, if you were below like 5,000 feet, it was just socked in everywhere and snowing. So
sometimes like that, you go out there and there's undercast is not complete. Sometimes it's complete. Every mountain around or beyond a certain elevation looks like an island.
Yeah.
But some days it's a partial undercast, which one day we were going up the Winter Route Lionhead Trail. We hadn't hit Tuckerman Ravine yet. And we were looking over towards Boot Spur and stuff. And it's just that whole west side of the mountain is just completely undercast. What was cool was all those clouds were literally pouring into Tuckerman Ravine like a waterfall or like a river. And it was like, wow, that's really neat.
That's pretty awesome. Is there any kind of, what else would you recommend besides Pierce maybe for some early on 4,000 footers for people to light that fire?
Tecumseh now has some views. Womback is a good one to do. Always read the guidebook. Trust me on this. One day I did Cabot in the morning, and then I drove and I was going to do Womback, and I got up. It was a very, very windy day, so I was actually worried about stuff falling on me, Widowmakers and whatnot. I get up to Star King, and which beautiful viewpoint on clear days. It wasn't clear. It was kind of a rainy, foggy, windy day. It was nasty. I get up there and I said, wow, that seemed a lot faster than I expected. And I turned around and I went home. I had met a group of people that were on Star King, and I saw on, I think it might have been views from the top, they had posted some photos, and they had said, yeah, we didn't have any views from Star King, but it was pretty up there. And I said, oh, that's that group. And I said, wait a minute, Star King. And frantically, I'm looking at the map.
Yeah.
It's like, and I'm not going to say the expletives that I shouted out that day on the podcast here. But I stopped at Star King and did not bag Womback. I had to go back for it. But that comes with it. Like when I did all the trails in the Whites, the Cabot Spring Spur, it took me 4 trips to finally get that spring. So it's just, I'm an honest person.
Is that the one? Is that the spring that's between like I was going to say tent site, but I mean the cabin
and the old cabin.
Yeah, and the cabin and the summit. Okay. Yeah, I've seen it marked on a map. I was looking, I briefly was curious where that it kind of didn't hit me till later, but when I did Cabot again over the summer, I was like looking, I always love to read the trail descriptions after I hike it. And I'm like, I didn't see where the hell that was. Like, I have no idea.
So in that particular one, the trail description is wacko.
Okay.
It does not kind of like you go to the summit, then you backtrack. I forget what it is, but it was like, this doesn't seem right. And then I went back another time. There was just too much snow. And finally, when I bagged it, there was no snow, and somebody had built a cairn.
Okay.
I was like, aha. I hiked down there. I mean, the spring was probably about the size of my chair. It was not very remarkable at all. So, but I mean, when you're doing all the trails like that, you kind of pay attention to things. McGalloway is a good one. Good example. When you climb up McGalloway, it's like 0.7 of a mile. It doesn't show a loop on the map, but it's a loop trail. I think it's 0.7 of a mile. You get up there and there's a cabin to your left. There's a fire tower to your right. And if you walk at a diagonal between the two, there's a clearing. And people will walk over there and they'll stand on the rock and they'll look at the clearing. It's like, oh, neat. I mean, you're not really seeing much up there. Mostly just woods, and there's some habitation over that way. But it's not much to really look at. And then they go home, and they're working under 52 at a view, so they think, oh, that's the viewpoint, and we're good to go. And they, McGalloway's up there, so people are driving. If they're coming up from Mass, it's a 4-hour drive to get to McGalloway for a 0.7 of a mile trail. But if you're hiking all the trails, it tells you about the spring spur. There's a spur trail for the spring for the caretaker of the cabin. And then there's also the Outlook Trail, which is like 0.3 of a mile. And it's behind the cabin, and there's a tiny little sign. So if you're up there and you're not familiar with this, you can go up to the Outlook and just say, "Oh, that was neat," and not see the Outlook sign. But that's where the money is. You find an Outlook sign, and it's like 0.3 of a mile, and it opens up.
And that's the one that's like it's like cliffs and ledges, right? That one is up to like the east, sort of southeast or something. Yeah. Okay.
The whole talus field on the eastern side of the mountain, that's viewable. It's not viewable from the other outlet.
Yeah.
Thank goodness I did that, because I would be freaking out right now.
Same. I read shout out to Ken McRae's 52 of you guide. I read it before. I did not catch that spring trail though. I'll have to look for that next time. But I did go.
That's more cryptic.
Okay. Yeah.
That's more cryptic.
Yeah, I definitely went to those for a second. I'm like, it is this one, right? I want to make sure I didn't miss it. I remember seeing the talus field. I was looking at pictures. It was
very reminiscent to the one on Cabot.
Okay.
It's just a tiny little thing. Okay, it has some water in it.
Yeah.
It's like, that's it. It's not very. It's not like you may. I guess you could soak your feet in it, but that'd be about it. Not room to.
Mike, are you a guy that carries your water with you, or do you do a lot of filtering? And what is your general summertime water strategy when you're out?
So I have in the summertime I use a hydration bladder. I use a 3-liter bladder, and I use a 0.5-liter bottle of platypus bottle, and I fill that with water and I freeze it. And then I put that inside the bladder, and then I fill the bladder with cold water, as cold as I can get it. And I put that in an insulated carrier that I made with, the bubble wrap, the aluminized bubble wrap. And it works out perfect. I'll put that on my pack, and I'll actually, if I have like a sandwich or something, I'll stick that in there at the opening, because the bladder comes to a flat section, and so it leaves a little bit of room there, so I can keep perishables, if you will, in the thing. And I have ice cold water all day, which I really like having ice cold water. So most of the time I carry what I need for the day. I do carry a filter in case I need to make more or something happens. I go into the mountains with a 24-hour pack mentality.
Okay.
In other words, I have enough clothing, food, and water, or means of filtering water, to last me 24 hours. Not necessarily comfortably, but I don't want to die. So that's kind of like my strategy. It's not for everybody. Some people really prefer to go fast and light, and I'm more of I'll go slow and heavy, even though it's a relative term. I hike pretty efficiently, so while I do hike slow, I tend to cover ground pretty quickly, because I will stay on top of scree walls and stuff like that when I'm hiking. Yeah. So I avoid the ups and downs and the weaving in between rocks and risking your shins. I just stay above all that mess and just kind of like glide up the mountain.
Yeah. What and we talked about social media a little bit, but like, what's your perspective as far as education? And like, I track all the media search and rescue events, and it seems like it's just pretty steady every year. It doesn't really change much, but I do feel like there's more hikers out there, which may indicate like there's less rescues per hiker. But are you seeing any improvement? Do you feel like there's a general level of education that's better now, or is it just not really changed?
With certain people, it's come to the forefront, but there's a lot every year. There's new hikers that, if they're not doing their research and things don't align the right way, they can get themselves in trouble. I don't remember who had this. I think it was on Views from the Top. There was one member of that forum, and on his signature line, he says, "The mountains spare most fools." And I've actually Googled that statement to try to find it, and I can't find it anywhere. So he probably coined it. He probably came up with that, but it is so true. People go into the mountains, they have their water bottle, they have their flip-flops, and they are just skirting and taunting danger all day long, and they come home and they say, wow, that was pretty cool, and then they start getting into hiking. But they have no idea how close they come to problems. So
yeah. Well, it's like you just said, you did Huntington Ravine and Keens, like, I did too. I mean, you just don't know when you're starting off, and most people just don't have issues. So.
Yeah, nothing against Keens. They're great books.
No.
Great boots. I just find, after I now have approach boots, it's like, wow, those Keens are really slippery.
Yeah.
So, but a lot of that too is, if your boots are slippery, then don't put them on surfaces that slide.
Mm-hmm.
Learn to use the points and things like that. This is part of what we actually teach in our river skills course. One of the big takeaways in a river skills course is just how to hike on trails and rock hop, you can be safe, but I have a saying is never ask your footwear to defy the laws of physics. It will mess with you. It will let you down. So I just try to, and I always slip. Probably once a hike, I usually slip on something. I don't necessarily fall down, but I, slip on a rock or something because I'm not perfect. I'm human just like everyone else. But I am cognizant about where I'm putting my feet. And I try to stay engaged. And to me, it's fun. Not everybody sees it that way, but to me, it's a game of just rock hopping. And, so I'll rock hop all the time on trails, wherever there's rocks. And I'll roots and rocks. Don't touch dirt. This is like the childhood thing where, you step on a crack, you break your mother's back. It's like that. It's a game for me. So, which I think it's engaging, and that makes it fun, and that makes it interesting. So it tends to keep me safer because I'm out there playing my games. You know what I mean? So, but people aren't aware of this stuff. Usually some of these things can take years. And I know, there's, little tweaks I've done to my pack. It's like, I've been putting up with this for 5 years. I'm going to actually address it now. So some of it is slow to come. You have to first realize that there's something that needs to be fixed, and then before you can actually fix it.
Yeah, so. I hired a guide when I went to Slovakia and hiked, and I had no idea about the territory, so I'd just hire somebody because I don't want to risk it. And it was interesting. Like I noticed, like I was watching him watch me because I was like, I'm going to see how this guy assesses what's going on. And he was pretty happy. He said, he's like, oh yeah. He's like, first of all, I didn't see an American in 3 years, but he said he was pretty happy. But that was the thing that he called out, is he was like, oh yeah, I can tell when people have some experience hiking because I watch how they navigate over the rocks and the roots and their footing. And he's like, yeah, I could tell that you've got, experience in the mountains. So, but people don't think about it, but you're exactly right. Like a lot of it, when I take my daughter, when she started getting into it, and then I took her boyfriend, watching them, how they step on the trail and interact with the common roots and rocks and water crossings tells you a lot. And then over time, you can see them, their confidence and their surety around those skills increases. And then, they're there.
Yeah. We do something on Mount Washington when we're taking people up the west side of the mountain, or the east side of the mountain, sorry, up the Tuckerman Ravine Trail. We'll hike them in pretty fast to Crystal Cascade. It's a 10-minute walk in. We try to do it in 8 minutes. The purpose of which is to make sure that they are warmed up and they want to delayer, because then we want to stop and delayer. And that's what we tell them that the stop is all about. Sorry, we're going to stop here, take off all layers, and we got 1.2 miles before our next major break. And we do something. We send them up to see Crystal Cascade, making sure that they have the right traction or whatever's needed on their boots. And we'll watch them go up. They see that, and we're not too interested in watching them go up, but we'll watch them come up, and then we watch them carefully coming down the stairs. If they take stair, or whether they come down like they would, a flight of steps at home, tells us a lot. And part of that is not just what we have to look out for, who has the confidence and who doesn't. We know the confidence is going to grow throughout the day, but it kind of helps us form and decide when we want to set a turnaround time, because we do that on mountain. We don't go on these hikes and have a turnaround time established before we hike, because we want to see how organized people are, how fast they hike, and there's a lot of factors in there to go into that. So, but hiring a guide is a smart thing to do, Mike. We bring a lot to the table. A lot of people will, want to be a guide with us, and they'll tell us that, they've brought friends up. And while that is practical experience, it's not guiding. There's a lot more to it, even hiking, just paying attention to certain things, establishing personalities. This is something we do going in. You get somebody that's happy-go-lucky all day long, and then all of a sudden come 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they're miserable. There's a reason. They could be really tired. They could have a blister. And some people will hike with blisters. They won't want to say anything because they don't want to be that guy. So as a guide, we will be proactive in that. Hey, any hot spots on your feet? In fact, there's a hill after the first bridge on Tuckerman Ravine Trail. I used to stop there and I'd say, boot check, guys. How's everybody? Because that just seemed like the right time. And there was one rock there where people could sit on, even in the wintertime. It was big enough to sit on. And we'd often tell people, all right, you're getting a hot spot, and have them take off their boot, dry their foot the best they could, take off the sock, put on a piece of Gorilla Tape on the hot spot to put the sock back on, put the boot back on. 5 minutes and we're back on the trail. They don't have to worry about getting a blister. And some people, if we don't do our job, they'll form a blister on their foot, and then we have a real problem. One, long term, it could become infected. It's inside the boot's a nasty place bacteria love it, but that's not good for us. But I've had that before. I've experienced it. Somebody said, are you fine? Are you fine? Are you fine? Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. And then they show me a picture of their foot at the end of the day, and it's like it's like a chunk of hamburger. It's like, Jesus, guys, we could have fixed that. And we try to educate people with this fact. So this is something, and when we were out there guiding, we'll shut up if our guests want us to. But otherwise, we're sharing geological information, historical information,
That's awesome.
Talking about flora and fauna. And a lot of times they have a lot of questions, and we can kind of like fill in the blanks and make the experience richer. It's not just about having some guy with you, that has a map or whatever.
That's cool. One, I did want to say you answered my question as to whether it would be safe to put Gorilla Tape on a blister on skin before. So that's good to know, because I carry that in my bag in case, but I've been apprehensive because that stuff's really sticky.
Yeah. Not, don't put it on a blister though.
Or like not an open wound kind of deal.
If a blister is formed, you need to treat it a little bit differently. You need to build up around the blister. But if they got a hot spot starting to get red and it's getting uncomfortable, if you catch it then that will give a second skin. And yeah, Gorilla Tape's good. A lot of people will carry like duct tape and they'll put it on their trekking pole. Yeah. That's fine for about a week or two. After it doesn't take long, but that whole wrap of duct tape becomes unusable. You can't undo it anymore. If it gets wet, it starts delaminating. But Gorilla Tape, I can put it on my trekking pole. 3 years later, I can still unpeel it and stick it, and it's good stuff.
Cool. Yeah, I carry a little bit in my pack, but I was gonna say. So speaking of guiding, and this comes back from something you mentioned on the Puds podcast that I was genuinely curious about. But you mentioned guiding out on Rainier and out west a bit. And I know too, I don't think we had got into the fact that you had only really started at like 15 years or so ago, getting into hiking and doing all that. But I was wondering if you could chat a little bit about kind of hiking out west and Rainier. And I know it's regarded kind of as one of the tougher mountaineering kind of challenges in the US, right? If not really the world's. Yep. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a tough mountain. The way we went up isn't particularly dangerous, though. There's places that you could get hurt from rock fall or from slip and sliding. I do want to tell you though, I have a lot of experience hiking. I started when I was a kid. My parents kind of pushed me into it. First time I did Mount Washington on my own 2 legs, I was only 4 years old.
So awesome.
But yeah, I was working for somebody. We were up there guiding. The objective was to do Rainier and Mount Shuksan in the Cascades, Northern Cascades.
So is this in between, like when you were working at the guiding company in New Hampshire before you started Redline?
Before I started Redline Guiding.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So in between that time. Okay.
And I've always had a thing for Mount Hood, and we were going to Portland Airport, and Mount Hood's only an hour to the southeast, I think, from that location. So I kind of brought it up on the plane flight over. It was night, and I said, let's do Mount Hood too. And we kind of all looked at each other, and this is when we're starting to think about it. And by the time we got off the plane, we decided we're going to do Mount Hood. So we went to Denny's, had food, and for your listeners, I'm doing air quotes.
That's good food.
The best.
And then we drove an hour to Mount Hood, to Timberline Lodge. And we're looking at our phones and trying to get as much beta and as much information as we can so we can do this thing safely. We get up there. There's nobody around. Timberline Lodge has this open air thing where you fill out permits and stuff like that. So we filled out our permits for climbing, and we weren't guiding on that. So we were just, we were being legit. And from Timberline Lodge, you can see the summit of Mount Hood. It's visible, and it looks like it's right there. It's not. It's a pretty big slog. It's like 9-10 hours to get to the summit from Timberline Lodge. But you go up along a ski area, and then you're getting into an area which it's just next to a glacier, but you're not on the glacier. On Hood, there's fumaroles, and we went up a route that's called Pearly Gates. But if you go to the left of that, there's New Chute, and then to the left of that
Sorry, did you say fumarole?
Yeah.
I've not heard
volcanic, that. Where steam comes out and smells like rock.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Gotcha. Okay.
And it's actually poisonous. If that's one of the dangers on Hood's a pretty dangerous mountain. If you were to slide in one of those fumaroles, you could become asphyxiated and die. So you have to be really careful up there. And we had, I've done it a couple times. We went up Old Chute, and then the last time I did it, we went up Pearly Gates, which is direct kind of to the summit. When you go up Old Chute and New Chute, you get to this, it looks like a ridge, and you kind of envision, it's like, okay, I'm going to get up there and it's going to be domed over like what we have here in the Whites. It's not. You get up there and basically you realize it drops down like 2,000-3,000 feet straight down. And you like do the Kilroy was here thing where we're peeking over the edge. And
Nick's not going to know that one. That's an 80s reference, Mike.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I'm going to have to look it up.
I got you, though. I got you. It sticks.
So, and that's from there, you have to go along this ridge, and we were like slinging boulders and stuff like that. And it's funny, the guy that was actually leading was starting to get some symptoms. It's 11,249 feet, I think. And he's starting to get a little funky from the elevation. So he actually did the summit. He just stood there or just sat there in the snow at the ridge. And I got the lead at that point. So I led us over to the summit. And then we came back a year later and just did it again. So I know this is segue into Rainier, because Rainier was the second mountain. And we met clients, and we did gear check and stuff like that. And our plan to go up Rainier was to go up Disappointment Cleaver. This is like the standard route for Mount Rainier, if you will. And there are some really dangerous routes if you're going up like Liberty Cap and doing stuff like that. People have died doing that. And I'm sure people have died on DC Disappointment Cleaver too, but I'm just not aware of it. So, but we go up from Paradise, the Muir Snowfields. We didn't go to Camp Muir. We stopped about a half mile short. There's some rocks where you can set up tents, and you can see scree walls from wind protection that people have built and stuff like that. So we set up our tents there, and we throw rocks at the marmots, because they will eat all your stuff if you don't shoo them away.
Well, they basically like sort of mountain gopher type things. Except they're really aggressive.
Like kind of like giant squirrels.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, I've seen videos of them before, but I wasn't sure exactly where they fit in the kind of the.
And I guess they can scream, or that might have been something that I just saw online. But they apparently can emit a rather loud scream. And that's called Moon Rocks, I think. And we stayed there, and then the following morning after breakfast, we hiked up to Camp Muir. It was only half mile away, and we did a 3-day trip. Both times I've done Rainier, it's a 3-day trip, which actually is a good way to do it. I would recommend 3 days. 2 days is really tough. It's just 2 really big days in a row. And spreading it out like that, one, gets you a little bit closer to the summit for the final summit day. And 2, it just makes that second day a chance to, brush up on some training and stuff like that. So we went up to Camp Muir, and Camp Muir smells like poop. There's outhouses there and buckets or barrels of poop and stuff like that. But it's a great place to take a poop. So that's what we did. And at that point, then you started getting into some real objective hazards on the mountain. This is where we were roped up and took out the ice axes and stuff. We were ready to self-arrest. We were going to go over the Cowlitz Glacier. On that, you kind of follow this staying on the same elevation. If you went straight across, you'd have to dip down, but you kind of like hug the wall, if you will. And then the last 100 yards of it or so, you could see there's a bunch of rocks in the snow, and you can see the rivulets that they've made as they fall through. So we actually, and this was really hard to do, but we double timed it. We kind of like jogged through that area because of the objective hazards, because there's a lot of rocks on the snow. And and the sun's out, and Mount Rainier is a crumbling mess that is held together with ice, basically. And when that sun comes out, it can start getting really dangerous in places like that. So we went across, and then you get into what's known as Cathedral Gap, which is a kind of like a switchback rock trail through rocks. And what we did, we stayed roped up, but we just took in our coils. So we were, you had somebody right in front of you, and you had the rope connected to them. You're holding onto the rope as a coil, so on and so forth. So we're not dragging the rope in the volcanic ash and stuff. Your crampons get absolutely covered with garbage from the dust and stuff like that, to the point like you're in a hotel room a couple days later, you're like in the sink trying to wash off your crampons, get this stuff out, and it's really tough. So once you get up there, another dangerous spot is getting onto the Ingram Glacier from the rock. Because the rock is dark colored, it heats up in the sun, so you can end up with like a snow bridge situation right at the edge, the lateral moraine, if you will, which is on either side, the edges of the glacier. So that can break through. But so you just take a kind of a leap of faith. You end up on the glacier, and then we're extending out everybody, so everybody has like 30 or 40 feet between them. And then from there, you just climb up a little bit. It's not super steep, and you end up in this flattish area. And what it is, it's actually an expansion zone. So the east or the south side of that is fairly dangerous, and there's some huge crevasses, because when the snow or the glacier is rolling over, it expands and it creates these fissures. And then when it's in a dip, then it's in a compression zone, and all those crevasses just close right up. So we spent the night there, and this is where there's a rock there called Gib Rock, they call it. It's the short for Gibraltar Rock, like the Rock of Gibraltar in Spain. And as soon as the sun goes down behind that, then you stand a small chance of getting some sleep. So that's the whole idea. You get there early. It's still in the afternoon, and you eat dinner really early, and you try to go to sleep. You lay out all your ropes. Everything's all set up for the morning, because you're going to wake up. It's not even morning. It's 11:30 at night. You're waking up, and it's like, it's time to make it for the summit, because the whole idea is to get up to the summit for dawn, because everything's frozen overnight, and then you have to kind of like hustle back down to get away from all those objective hazards and get back onto the safer areas. So we showed up on Ingram Glacier. We stake it out by taking an avalanche probe and making sure there aren't crevasses like right underneath us and stuff. And then once we're fine, then we said, okay, we've established an area, and we take wands to mark it out. It's like, if you stay in this area, you should be safe. And that's when we unrope and kind of lay everything out for the morning, all the prussics and the alpine butterflies and stuff like that on the rope. Our crampons are set up. Everything's all set up, ready for us. We leave our tents right there on Ingram Flats. So everything stays there. We only take a lighter pack up to the summit with what we need, emergency gear for the day and stuff like that. And then you go up. And first thing you do is you go under the Ingram Icefall. And I don't know if it's always there, but I've seen it a couple times. Both times I've been there, there's a fairly sizable crevasse that you go over the crevasse on a ladder. But it's not like Everest. There's also some like 12 by 8s or whatever boards on there that you can walk on, so you're not like actually balancing on the rung.
How wide of a crevasse are we talking? Like how wide is
like 6 or 8 feet maybe.
Wow. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're kind of like all right, this is good. I mean, it's a little unnerving.
Can't see the bottom of it.
On the ladders really helps a lot.
Okay. I'm assuming you can't see the bottom of it either at all.
Yeah, you don't see open. You don't see open crevasse directly underneath your body. You're walking on a board. It's all chopped up from people wearing crampons.
Wow.
And you don't go much further. I'm trying to remember, maybe 0.1 or something like that. And then you actually get onto Disappointment Cleaver, which is a rock formation. And you kind of cross on the east side of that, and then you get up to a point where you climb up. There's a gap there, and this varies day to day, and it varies by time of day. In other words, you go up one way, and by the time you come down in the afternoon, something else has been established. So, and it changes. It's kind of like going across the southeastern snowfields of Mount Washington in the wintertime. Every day you get up there, there's no tracks. There's no boot track. So you create a boot track, and that tends to be the boot track for the day. And then the next thing, next day, somebody, some people will go high and then they go over. Some people go right across. Some people will stay low and then go up. And a lot of that's dependent on, objective hazards, avalanche conditions, and stuff like that. So we're on and this is another place where we're taking up the coils because we don't want to drag our ropes in. And then you get to the top of Disappointment Cleaver and you step off into the snow. The first time we did it, it was in July. And we continued upward. From there, you can go right up to the summit, but we couldn't because there was a massive crown line. It was probably 10 or 12 feet tall. And so what everybody was doing is they were basically going towards the Kotz Glacier, which is on the northwest side of the mountain.
A crown line?
Doubling back to get past this crown line, this avalanche crown line.
Is that just basically like an icy buildup of snow, like a wall in front of you, or what?
It's just like you see them on Mount Washington after an avalanche. If it's a slab avalanche, it'll break away cleanly, and then there's a vertical. Oh,
just what's left of it, like okay,
yeah. It's like if someone like almost didn't slide,
like if someone just like sliced a cake, almost kind of looking thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then they moved some of the way as your avalanche, and what was there, that's where it broke, and the stuff up there is fairly stable.
Cool.
But it would be very difficult to climb. So we just kind of continued on. We were kind of like going with the flow. This is what everybody was doing. There were no more snow bridges that year, or no more ladders. There were snow bridges and stuff like that, and crevasses. There weren't many seracs, which are ice, big ice boulders, ice and snow boulders, if you will, for lack of a better way of describing them.
Okay.
And so you end up back at the crater, at the cone of Rainier, and you are on the south side of the mountain at that point. And the objective is to walk across the crater. It's all full of snow. There are ice tunnels underneath if you really want to get crazy and explore. We just stayed out of those. We didn't know what we were doing enough to venture into those spots. Plus, we had guests with us, so we didn't want to, get them in any trouble. But about halfway across the crater, the sun rose, and it's like, oh, there it is to the east, and it's like that was kind of a cool moment. And then you keep going, and if you make it to the other side of the crater, underneath a rock, there's a lockbox, and there's a book in there that you can sign, a log book to show that, you made it. And then you walk a little bit further to what is called Columbia Crest, which is the high point. It's on the northwestern edge of the crater. And from there, you can see Liberty Cap, which is like a Mount Rainier subsummit, if you will. And some people come up that way. So at that point, we don't hang out too much. It's the sun's coming up. It's going to start getting warm. So we head down. When we did Hood, it was 11:30 in the morning. We were coming down. That was a little sketchy. Because we got a late start with, flying to Portland, Oregon and all that stuff before the hike.
Yeah. Trying to sleep.
So, the next time we did it was actually in June. It was 11 months later, and when we were getting our climbers permits from Paradise, they looked at we had our card from the following year, and they said, "Oh, you guys don't need to do this. You're good." It was only 11 months. Like, oh wow, I didn't even realize that because the permit's good for a year.
That's cool.
So we went up, and that was an entirely different experience. As soon as we stepped off the Cleaver, we started a circuitous route over towards the Kotz Glacier. There was probably 10 maybe ladders in play, bridges. There were a lot of seracs, and you're walking next to something that's the size of a house. And you figure, that's pretty stable. But guess what? It's not. It can fall over any moment. So we're kind of like, we go through there. This is, you're focused on what you're doing and getting past these dangerous areas. So I did have somebody in front of me, one of our clients fell into a crevasse, but he didn't go all the way, and he only one leg popped in up to his crotch. And I didn't even go into a self-arrest. He didn't yell falling or anything, but I'm like braced, and I'm holding onto the rope. He's in front of me, making sure he can get out. And then we sacrificed a couple of wands, and we marked that spot because that was a weak snow bridge, basically. If he would have gone in both legs, his pack might have caught him. It would have been very, very scary. As it was, going in one leg was scary enough. Going with two legs and being stopped by your pack. But sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes they go into the crevasse. And that's a very dangerous situation because stopping somebody from going into a crevasse and not pulling everyone with them is really hard to do. In fact, I've seen videos before where it's like 1 out of 10 make it. Stop the fall. And then, when they're doing these videos and they're practicing, they have an anchor. So nobody's actually going into the crevasse, but the guy who's in self-arrest is not stopping the person behind him that's falling into a crevasse. And he goes right to the edge. And hopefully the other person doesn't deck on some ice in the crevasse where you're basically hauling up someone that is injured or even worse. So
that's wild. I feel like I always think of the self-arrest coming into play when you're like sliding down a mountaintop, but you're talking like you're literally just digging into the ground as hard as you can, trying to prevent them from falling in.
You're part of a rope team, and we teach this. We have a glacier skills course, one of our classes, and you can do this you can do this training outside. You don't need a crevasse to do it. But the first thing that happens is the person who's falling is supposed to yell falling. And I often joke, I say, any F word works. And because we all know what they mean. And at that point, you dive, you're holding on your ice axe the right way. So you bring it up, you're picked forward, you go right into a self-arrest, you're putting all of your weight, pressing your shoulder, trying to get that ice axe as deep into that snow as possible. And at the same time, you rapidly kick in some buckets for your feet, because you are about to take a whole lot of weight on the hip belt, on the belay loop on your harness. It's depending on how deep the crevasse is and how long the fall, you might not have time to really establish much of a hold. And that's what happens. So when they're doing this training, I saw the video, there's actually a guy standing next to the crevasse. He says falling, and then he steps into the crevasse. And then the other person is like right there, they're waiting. And then he dives into self-arrest. And like I said, 9 out of 10, they're pulling that lead guy with him and pulling him right into the crevasse with him. They don't because they have an anchor, but that's the reality. It's pretty sobering, actually, to see a video like that. It's like, wow, this is so... If somebody falls in a crevasse, it's really touch and go whether you're even going to stop them and mitigate a disaster. So...
Yeah, I've seen some. I remember seeing there was a show about search and rescue in like Switzerland, and they did the first episode was somebody fell deep in, and they were able to get basically like a tripod to drop in there to get him. But
yeah, and they had helicopters, right?
Oh yeah, they had helicopters.
Yeah, I know that. I've seen that.
Yeah,
and
it's
that's
crazy.
They're really kind of a cool pro outfit over there.
Yeah, it's crazy. So we can hire you if you want to take us out west and make sure we don't fall into any holes.
Yeah, we just have to get the permits. That's all.
Right. Okay.
With Rainier, it's a little difficult to get permits.
Okay.
So, but there are other mountains out there where you can get permits pretty easily. So.
I'm definitely intrigued by some of those mountains out west. I don't know about Rainier, but to me, it's just a different world. And it's funny too. Like I had a follow-up question that was going to be sort of like mountaineering versus like hike. But I think anybody that listened to the past, just your story, it's like mountaineering and going across glaciers and doing this. That is a totally different ball of wax than hiking. I mean, obviously, I was dumbfounded by just some of the terminology. I'd never heard some of these different things. So I find it fascinating.
In my mind, the demarcation is you're on a trail, you're hiking, you're just climbing a mountain, you're mountaineering or climbing. So
yeah.
So June, when we went up in June, it was a very low snow year. So this is why we had all these hazards, because a lot of these hazards, they exist. We just don't see them because there's so much snow on top of them. And especially the upper part, the accumulation zone in a glacier, it's pretty deep snow. I mean, really, really deep snow. So the other end, the ablation zone, beyond the line of equilibrium, everything lower than that gets more hazards because it's melting out. And that loses snow, whereas the accumulation zone gets thicker and thicker every year. The snow coming in is greater than the snow going out, basically.
Wow.
So, from there, we went back to Ingram. In both situations, we went back to Ingram Flats. We packed up everything and we left. And we went all the way to the parking lot. It's a pretty big day. It's like 9.5 miles or something like that, or like 9,000 feet of elevation change there. So it might be more miles. I don't remember, but I think the elevation is like 9,000 or something like that. The summit of Rainier is 14,410. Though some people will tell you it's 411. So I'm going to say, it's 410. I'm good with that.
We'll go with that.
Wow. Well, Mike, I appreciate you coming on again and
thank you,
catching
Mike.
up. Yeah, it's like I learn a bunch of things every time we talk to you. But
seriously,
how can if anybody wants to hire you or learn more about Redline Guy? I mean, and the thing is, on the website for your there's a ton of articles and information there that you just put out there for free. So it's definitely worth checking out. But if we want to hire you, how do we go about doing that?
Go to the website and either use the contact form or find our email to write and just make an inquiry, or get the phone number and give us a call. Or like some people do, they read the website and they fill out the booking form and they give us a date range, and we get back to them and kind of, flesh out the details, assign a guide to them, and put them in the schedule. So it's pretty easy.
Awesome. Yeah. And we appreciate all that you and your team do. It's not just guiding, but like you guys all share a lot of information, and you're out there in, various forms on different sites and whatnot, sharing, a lot of education. So it's appreciated, and, we're always happy to have you join us.
Yeah. And we share that on Mountain too when we're with people. We try to convey safety information and stuff. People don't know what they don't know. So they might go into a thing thinking that they pretty much have everything dialed in, and by the end of the day they realize, like, wow, there's a lot that I didn't realize. So
right.
And we'll do this again, and then we'll get into shucks in. I didn't talk about that.
Well, it's like when we talked to you on Pods, I was like, between you talking about doing Fuji when you were a kid to like that, I'm like, I wanted to hear about, but there's just so many topics to cover. I feel like we could talk for hours, so we'll definitely have to get you back. But thanks again, Mike, for chatting with us. This was great.
I appreciate being here. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, Nick. Mike is full of stories.
He is. I always feel like second time I've chatted with that guy, once here and once on Pud's podcast, and I feel like we literally could talk for hours and hours about. He's done a lot of different things.
Yeah, I was surprised he was talking about how he doesn't get. I had this impression that he got out more than he did, but I guess he said, it's keeping the business going is primary, and then he's got a great team of guides that we know a bunch of them. So definitely, if you've got someone that's looking to get into hiking, or they're not sure, or even if you yourself want to go out and get a terrifying 25, and you don't have any friends. We understand. You just pay for your friends to have Mike and his team take you out there.
Yeah. And you did mention briefly too, I wanted to call out, but even just their website, it's a great hiking resource. Right. Like he's got the essentials and sort of a bunch of different information on the lists and all that stuff. It's all free. It's just there to read for your own consumption. And I'd highly recommend checking it out.
Right. And so that'll do it for today, Nick. And
excellent.
Just remember, if you're getting chased by a bear, don't throw your backpack away. Just throw them food and run as fast as you can.
I'll try to keep my sanity and definitely have that thought in my head if I encounter any bears in the future.
Yep. Keep your sanity and your backpack.
Yes.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to learn more about the topics covered in today's show, please check out the show notes and safety information at SLASRPodcast.com. That's SLASRPodcast.com. You can also follow the show on Facebook and Instagram. We hope you'll join us next week for another great show. Until then, on behalf of Mike and Stomp, Get out there and crush some mega peaks.
Now covered in scratches, blisters, and bug bites, Chris Staff wanted to complete his most challenging day hike ever.
Fish and Game officers say the hiker from Florida activated an emergency beacon yesterday morning. He was hiking along the Appalachian Trail when the weather started to get worse. Officials say the snow was piled up to 3 feet in some spots, and there was a wind chill of -1 degree.
And there's 3 words to describe this race. Do we all know what they are? Only one help!
Here's Lieutenant James Neeland, New Hampshire Fish and Game. Lieutenant, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
What are some of the most common mistakes you see people make when they're heading out on the trails to hike here in New Hampshire?
It seems to me the most common is being unprepared, and I think if they just simply visited hikesafe.com and got a list of the 10 essential items and had those in their packs, they probably would have no need to ever call us at all.